How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
Can we grow up a little bit and
Alt
not
Girl
be
sent $200.
retarded?
Have you
Please.
seen the work of Karlyn Borysenko? Anti-commie cult leader and is obsessed with looking at what actual far-left communists are talking about and organizing today, infiltrating them. They infiltrated the universities, schools, media. She has the receipts to back it up. Primary source evidence. Infestation is dire and she calls Republicans idiots eating slop. Agree.
Thank you for the big super chat. Yeah, oh, I know Karlyn B. She's solid. She's funny. I
The
like
great
her.
noticer sent $200.
Literally.
So
not Ian.
it's not because I haven't dangled my junk into the combat zone on purpose to get some camera footage, but that's the big part of what's the
Is
problem.
that what you call reporting?
Go
and live
under, if
streaming?
you're going to do it,
Yeah,
go
seriously.
undercover. Otherwise you're wearing a hunk of meat in a lion's den. Nick Shirley, I love you. Take care of yourself, man. Karlyn Borysenko went undercover. Do stuff like that. Like if you want to expose this thing, don't pariah, please.
But Ian, here's and I agree with you to an extent.
I watch these streams, and I've been watching a self-professed fascist named Karlyn, who drinks and basically roasts these live streams. But weirdly, she has apparently embedded herself with Antifa before, and so it's such a funny stream because
So they tolerate her?
oh no, not anymore. She no. She's like, I mean, I don't know if she's trolling or not, but on her stream, she's like, I am a fascist.
Right.
So she's proudly proclaiming she's a fascist. I don't know how much of that is trolling, how much of it is real, but conservatives who are drawn to her stream will say things like, these people are funded by George Soros. And it's the funniest thing because she gets so mad. And she's like, get off fucking Fox News. Stop watching that shit. It's all wrong. Do these people look funded? Do these people look like they have money? They're not funded. It's so, and I guess her bigger point is by saying these are funded agitators and not saying what they actually are, which is anti-capitalist revolutionaries, you dilute what's really happening. Because what's really happening, according to her, and I think a fair amount of people, is that the economy is so fucked. The middle class is diminishing so much. The cost of living is so high that this is the perfect soil you need if you wanted communism to grow anywhere.
And I've learned a lot from Karlyn Borysenko, who goes in undercover with the left. And I've figured out from looking at her work, like when I first saw her stuff, I was like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. I need to like connect with her. And she actually, the first time I got assaulted in 2025, followed me and sent me messages, and she checked on me for months, just privately. It was so nice to have somebody like, are you okay? But I could tell she knew what she was talking about, and I subscribe to her. I look at all her stuff. I've learned so much, and I thought I knew a lot. I've learned so much.
Und weil der Mensch ein Mensch ist, drum braucht er was zum Essen, bitte sehr. Es macht ihn ein Geschwätz nicht satt, das schafft kein Essen her. Rum links, 2, 3, rum links, 2, 3, wo dein Platz genossen ist. Weil ich ein in die Arbeit einheimst und weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist. Und weil der Mensch ein Mensch ist, drum hat der Stiefel im Gesicht nicht gern. Er will unter sich keinen Sklaven sehen und über sich keinen Herrn. Drum links 2, 3, drum links 2, 3, wo dein Platz genossen ist. Weil dich ein in die Arbeiter einheimst und weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist. Und weil der Prolet ein Prolet ist, drum wird ihn kein anderer befreien. Es kann die Befreiung der Arbeiter nur das Werk der Arbeiter sein. Drum links 2, 3, drum links 2, 3, und ein Platz genossen ist, weil dich ein in die Arbeiter einheimst und weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist.
Здравствуйте, comrades. Welcome to Socialism Saturday. A little bit of a slightly delayed Socialism Saturday tonight because Victor and I went up to the White Mountains today and we got lunch at this little place that was like a local place, and then we went hiking and we went in caves and we saw waterfalls and things like that, and we were just late coming back because traffic. I wasn't driving. If I was driving, probably we would have gotten back faster because I'm, Victor can drive fast, but I think I still overall drive faster. Anyway, I was late. There was traffic. I'm sorry. Whatever. What did we eat for lunch? Victor had some sort of fancy hot dog with all sorts of toppings on it, and I had Caesar chicken salad pita wrap or something that barely had any Caesar salad in it, but the chicken was pretty good, actually. So nothing exciting. Nothing too terribly exciting. It was actually a pretty boring day, but that's all right. Sometimes it's okay. It wasn't, sadly, we're in New Hampshire. No Chicago-style hot dogs in New Hampshire allowed. Nope. But that was okay. It was a good day. That was why I was late, though. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be brown today. It's not my fault. Traffic is traffic. What can you do? Also, can I tell you that there is a Pisces on the other side of the internet who's having so many feelings today. It must be a watery day for Pisces if I were to look at the astrology. Is the moon in some sort of water sign or something? Because the Pisces on the other side of the internet was up in his feelings in my DMs all day. I'm going to tell you that. So we're gonna see where that whole shit show goes, if anywhere. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But it's just like, man, the astrological interpretation of the psychology of that whole thing is wild. It is wild. And again, if you don't know, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But apparently his minions are watching this show and clipping it literally every single fucking time I talk about him, which I didn't actually expect, if I'm being honest about it. I actually didn't expect that. I was like, oh, they probably lost interest in me. And, but apparently they haven't lost interest in me. And apparently every single time I make a snarky remark, it gets clipped and sent to him. And now he's convinced that I'm obsessed with him. Anyway, again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But there will be people watching who know what I'm talking about. And apparently those people will clip this almost as soon as it happens and send it to him. I know, I was late. I know. It's not my fault though. It's never my fault. It's never my fault. Never my fault. Well, Malcolm, you got to come over onto YouTube. YouTube is where all the action's at in the chat, bro. It's not on Facebook. Not on Facebook. How did he get the bat signal to? I don't fucking know. I don't know. Other than, well, he was having some feelings yesterday. I think he was triggered by me having both Adam and Amalek on the stream. Because that's why I keep asking him. He's like, keeps trying to say, he's like, you're obsessed with me. You're obsessed with me. You're obsessed with me. I'm like, I'm way more fucking obsessed with Amalek than I am with you, bro. Like, what are you talking about? Like, Amalek is the one that was on my stream for 6 hours the other day. He was on the stream for another 4 hours. Like I talk to him all the time. And like, you think I'm obsessed with you? No, I'm obsessed with it. Okay, let me ask this. What in the chat? Again, we'll get into the real show in a second. We're letting people file in here, okay? If you know who Big Tech is, and the fact that most of you in the chat right now probably don't know who he is, should say something to the Pisces on the other side of the internet. If you know who I'm talking about. 1 in the chat if you think I am more obsessed with Big Tech than I am with Amalek. 2 in the chat if you think I'm more obsessed with Amalek than I am with Big Tech. We can add other people in there too. I mean, there are plenty of people that I talk about way, way, way more than I talk about with the Pisces. You're going with 3, Leonard, just to be contrarian? Yeah. Everyone who actually watches my show know who actually has status on this channel. The one who comes around all the time in the chat, the one who isn't a douche to me all the fucking time, the one who actually makes content and is productive, the one who actually has hair, by the way. He does have hair. He's fucking hot. That is the one that I'm obsessed with, Pisces. Okay? Lord of the Re. I don't know what the fuck that's. Does anyone read German or whatever the fuck that is? What does that say? Do I need to put this in? I'm going to put this into ChatGPT. Hang on. I'm putting this into ChatGPT right now. I'm going to be like, ChatGPT, what the fuck does that say? Hang on. Screenshot. What does that say? You better not be like Fed posting or something. Oh, YouTube will translate it? Well, I already did ChatGPT. On the hearth, a little flower booms, and it is called Erica. Okay, well, at least it wasn't Fed posting. Here's what it said. Sending me thank you for the German super chat, though. I appreciate it. That's what it said. For people who are interested. Anyway, so I had a weird day. Also, can I ask you guys something before we get into the actual show? Listen, I don't mean to be a dick about this. I'm really not trying to be a dick. Does anyone know who this guy is? I know one of you must watch him or know who he is. And listen, Sean, I don't mean any offense by this, bro. I don't watch other content on the internet. So the fact that I don't know who he is, I'm not trying to be offensive and I'm not trying to be a dick. I just don't watch other content on the internet. So I very rarely follow along with like, who's even creating content? I don't know. No one knows who this is. Okay. This guy apparently runs some sort of debate show. It's like one of like the 10-on-1 debate shows. And he messaged me a couple weeks ago and he was like, "Do you want to come on my debate show?" And I was like, wait, can you give me some more parameters? Like, what would be the context? I don't know. Maybe like in what context would you like me to participate in a debate show, good sir? And then he sent me a list of like upcoming debates. And I guess he wanted me to like volunteer to be one of like the 10 people in the debate. And actually, maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll get back to this. I'll get back to this. Hang on, Master Shake. Hang on. I'll get back to that because that's actually not a bad idea. I'm going to explain to you guys what happened. So first he messaged me and he was like basically offering me a slot as one of 10 people that would debate another person. And I basically told him, and again, like, I don't mean any offense by this. I was like, I'm really not interested. Like, I'm just not interested in that sort of discussion. Like, no offense. Like, I don't want to be one of those people on that show that's like sitting on the outside of the circle and runs towards the chair. I actually just don't care enough to do that. So I was like, no, thank you. But, thanks for asking. I appreciate it. Whatever. So he messages me back today and he's like, would you like to be the one person who's debating the 10 people? Now, fundamentally, this is a little bit more appealing to me because obviously it makes me the star of the show. And I think that that's good for me. But I'm struggling here because like, I don't know what debate I would do that I think would be productive. So Master Shake says he wants me to debate a bunch of communists as a fascist. I could do that, but the thing of it is, I don't know fascist ideology in and out well enough to do that. I don't. The reason I say I'm a fascist, it's a little bit tongue in cheek, is just because like the left believes that anyone who is not on the far left is a fascist. So that's why I started calling myself a fascist. That's literally what it is. The far left believes that anyone who is not a communist or a revolutionary socialist is a fascist. If you support the capitalist system in any way, you are a fascist. That is their literal fucking definition of fascism. And so, like, I feel like if I positioned myself as a fascist debating 10 communists, I don't think that would go well for me because I don't actually understand fascist ideology or National Socialism or like any of the, I don't actually understand it well enough to describe it. I don't understand, like, with communism and socialism, I understand that well enough because that's what I've spent the bulk of my time studying. I have not spent any time studying fascism to any great degree. I mostly say I'm a fascist because, like, I don't care about repressing the rights of communists because they want to literally kill us. And so it's kind of like, I don't think I would do very well in that debate because the prompts don't fucking matter. People are going to try to debate you on whatever they want to debate you on. The prompts don't matter. So I just don't know that I would do well in that debate. So I don't think there's any point in me debating 10 communists because, like, what's going to really happen? Like, nothing I say or do is going to convince a communist not to be a communist. Like, I find that to be like a big waste of time. Like, I truly do mean that. It's just like, there's literally what communists do when we lay out their ideology to them based on watching, oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Bro, we've already moved on from, can I do my thing about being invited on a debate show without a Pisces rudely interrupting the street? He wanted this to happen, by the way. I promise you he wanted this to happen. But that's okay. We're going to go back to this for right now. So, like, I really don't think that there's any point in me debating 10 communists on some sort of debate show because, like, I'm not going to convince them not to be communists. And what's going to happen is that even if I lay out explicitly the content that we've been watching on this channel for like years and years and years and years and years, it's not all about you. Oh, no. It's not about you. Oh my God. Even if I lay out clearly what we watch in far left trainings, like day after day after day, What the communists on the debate panel are going to do is they're going to try to gaslight me. We've seen this happen every single time I do it. No, I didn't fucking... You are the one that has me blocked, asshole. I do not have you blocked. I didn't ban you. The Oh, no. The communists would just gaslight us anyway. We've seen them do this a million times before, okay? Could I debate that McCarthy was right? I would have to study up on that, to be honest with you. Like, I would really, like, okay, I know, like, this much about McCarthy. I know, and I have some cool McCarthy artifacts that I got in San Francisco, which, like, no one else has, which is fucking awesome, which is going to go in my museum someday. But, like, I know, like, this much about McCarthy. I know enough to be dangerous. I don't feel like I'm in a good position to debate anyone. What I would like to do, like, the debate I would actually be interested on this show. I asked Adam to do a watch party for Andrew versus Candace, and he said, I'm busy. Then would you... I didn't... How the fuck am I supposed to know that? Adam wasn't even originally invited to the watch party yesterday. Amalek wasn't even originally invited to the... I started the watch party, and then I said to Amalek in the DMs, hey, here's the link for the watch party, and you can come and join if you want. I didn't even know if he was going to join. I'd already started the fucking stream, and then about half an hour into it, Amalek says, you should send Adam the link. That's it. Amalek was in Adam's fucking DMs to try to get him to come on the stream with me. How the fuck was I supposed to know you would be streaming? You never stream. You never fucking stream. How the fuck was I supposed to know that that would be the mystery day out of your twice a month streaming schedule and that you wanted Adam for that time period? If you want to work out some schedule for Adam's time, you're going to need to learn to communicate in advance when you're going to be streaming to make sure I'm not streaming the same fucking thing. This is not a reasonable expectation to hold me to, Pisces. No problem, Karlyn. I'm doing a show with a witch lady. Okay, well, then have fun with your witch show. If you want to do a witch show with Jennifer, I don't think that would go very well for you, by the way. I think Jennifer would annoy the shit out of you. But if you want to go do a show with Jennifer, go do a show with Jennifer. I don't care. If Jennifer wants to cheat on me with you, I don't care. It doesn't go, you go have fun. Go have fun. Let's see, what else do you say? My and Andrew and Adam all have... Yeah. Then you should have scheduled him first, asshole, okay? You should have scheduled... Oh, no. Yeah, like Master Shake can go on your show. Does anyone else want to go on Big Tech's Kick stream that he does twice a month? Yeah, well, you set it up. You set it up. I am not responsible for your... When did I become your booker? When did I become your manager? Okay? Yeah, you can go on. Does anyone else want to go on his show? Reagan says, fuck no, I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. Yep. This is so true. This is why the Pisces are at the bottom of the hierarchy. This is why the Aries are at the top of the hierarchy. The number one sign. This is the Pisces at the bottom of the hierarchy. Okay, thank you. I can continue now. God. See, you never know what's going to happen on Socialism Saturday. You never know what's going to happen on Socialism Saturday. Anyway, the debate that I would actually like to do with this kid, if he can give me like 10 conservatives to debate about what the far left actually is, I would do that in a heartbeat. But I just don't think any conservatives are going to do that, because most of the time when conservatives are like, oh, she hates the left and I hate the left, they think that we believe the same thing about the left and we just fundamentally don't. Like Cam Higby did that, right? Cam Higby was like, like, the Pisces definitely gave that bitch something to sweet. She's gonna be all up in it. See, Big Tech blocks me on Twitter, and he thinks that that's like, I'm the most annoying person. Oh no, just wait until Poetry Painter is all up in his tags trying to kiss his ass because she wants him to attack me. Just wait till that happens. I promise you, she's way more annoying than I am. Way more annoying. You did probably get thin because of... Yeah, it was all because of you. Yeah, it's all because of you. Yeah, that was my... It wasn't getting chased down the street by a black man in San Francisco after I got spotted undercover at an event. No. It wasn't me getting chased down the street, being filmed by a fucking black man after getting run out of a far-left event I was undercover at. It wasn't that at all. It was you. It was you. That was my entire motivation for losing weight. You're right. You got me. Well, I guess whatever it takes. It seemed to work. So if this kid can find me like 10 conservatives to debate, I will do that in a heartbeat. I just don't know where he's going to find those people. So I don't know. Maybe I will be lucky and blessed enough to be on some debate show on the internet someday. And maybe I won't. Who knows? Anyway, we are going to be watching a video tonight from a channel called Andrewism. And I've seen this channel over the years, but I kind of didn't really take it seriously because I had a lot of subscribers on it. And generally speaking, I much more prefer to watch content from like the little tiny socialist YouTube channels rather than like the big ones, because the little tiny socialist ones give us some of the best content and no one else has it. And so that tends to be what I prefer to do. But this Andrewism channel actually looks like it has a bunch of good stuff. Social capital. We need to rethink democracy, mutual credit, insurgency. It's time to rethink religion. Like, I actually want to watch a lot of these videos. And this guy, I think, claims to be an anarchist. And I think he is, based on, here's the one we're going to watch, Organizing Anarchy. So, I don't know. I thought we would give this one a try. And I thought that, thanks for being a member of the channel for 6 months, Anthony. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I do rock. I'm fucking awesome. I think that the Pisces just needs to accept this and move on with life. Everyone loves me and they all don't like you because you're being a dick. Okay? Anyway, we're going to watch this video about how anarchy works. Yo, Tolkien fan, W's to you. Big support, bro. W's, thank you so much for the 10 gifted channel memberships. Really appreciate that. Let me add that to the banner. Bing. Cool. All right, so we're going to watch this video about how anarchy works because I think that this could potentially be like a good intro level video for people who are not as familiar with the Antifa in the wild. And I also think it's just good for people to hear them say it rather than me say it because, I'm not the fish, Pisces. You're the fish. You're the fish swimming up and down and in and out and in a fucking circle and all around and then swimming into a cave and sitting his ass there for several months, not saying a fucking word, and then swimming out of the cave, and now you're encircling, and that's you. You are the fish. I am not the fish. I am the fucking ram. Yeah, I'm not a fish. Not a fish. Anyway, I thought this would be a great video for people to watch, especially if you're new to understanding how Antifa is actually organized, which is as a non-hierarchical, decentralized organization, okay? Antifa has no leaders. There is no hierarchy. There are thousands and thousands of Antifa cells all over the country, but they are not beholden to each other. There's no official line of reporting. There's no funding streams that can be cut off. Trump is so full of shit on that one. By the way, did you see that the organizations that the Trump administration was tracking in the Minneapolis anti-ICE organizing, they were like all progressive organizations. They weren't even far-left organizations. So proving once again, the Trump administration does not know the fucking difference between progressives and Antifa because the Trump administration wasn't even fucking tracking the far-left organizations in Minneapolis. They were tracking the progressive organizations. Like, it was in an article in Politico today. Whatever. We know more about this than anyone, and it sucks, and it's a burden, and there's nothing we can do about it. So we're going to learn how Antifa is organized. This is a video called How Anarchy Works. Prior to getting started with Socialism Saturday, We do have a rules video that we expect people to watch and pay very close attention to, because your ass will be permanently banned in the chat if you break my rules. That goes for you too, Pisces. And the Pisces in the chat can just marvel at how different I look now than in this video and be impressed at how much weight I lost. And I really think that, for the amount of shit that he gave me about my weight, perhaps he could just, acknowledge that I look fucking hot and he doesn't like it. And that's the way it is. Anyway, pay attention to the rules.
All right, for anyone that's new, we have some rules for Socialism Saturday. Let me go over them real quick. Socialism Saturday is a research group and a class. We do take this seriously. You're allowed to have fun. You're allowed to have a drink or two. You're allowed to kind of kick back and joke in the chat. However, I need everyone to understand that when we are researching the radical revolutionary left, we do take this seriously. And so if you're shitposting in my chat, I'm going to tell you to stop. If you are posting off topic in the chat, I'm going to ask you to stop at some point, because it's going to be distracting to what we're doing. I need you to think of yourself as in a classroom. And I'm not talking about an online classroom. I'm talking about a real life classroom, okay? When you walk into a real life classroom, I am the teacher, you are the students. You are sitting in the desk, I am sitting in the front of the classroom. I'm standing there teaching you what is going on. If you were in a real life classroom, you wouldn't walk in, start throwing shit at the wall, yelling, saying, I disagree with you because my best friend said something different. That's not allowed. I don't care about your feelings. I'm not going to coddle your opinion. And that's going to be the way it is. And if you don't like it, you don't have to be here. But if you are in my classroom, you will respect my rules and you will listen to me. And if you do not do that, then you will be removed. And how you feel about being removed makes no difference to me at all. The expectation is if you're going to be here and you're going to be watching socialism with us and you're going to be participating in the chat, you are doing it because you are serious about learning this topic and understanding this topic. The minute that I think that you're just fucking around or you're trolling or something like that, you're going to get put in a timeout or permanently banned, and that's just going to be the way it is. Rule number 2, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people in the chat. I can do whatever I want because I am the queen fascist bitch of my YouTube channel. So I can say and do whatever I want. But if you don't insult me and you don't insult other people in the chat, we're not going to have a problem. So be an adult, rein that shit in. Number 3, no whining. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care if you feel personally attacked. It makes no difference to me at all. And I promise you, I care about your feelings a little bit more than the left does. So if you can't handle me, you can't handle the left. If you start whining and complaining because you don't like the rules or you think you're being treated unfairly, you can just leave, bro. There's the door. You don't have to be here. Number 4, listen. Our job here and why we do Socialism Saturday is to listen to what the left is saying, to listen to what real leftists are doing in the real world. This is not to support your confirmation bias. This is not to support any conservative bullshit narrative that you may have heard on Glenn Beck that one time. This is not to be what you want it to be. This is to engage with reality. We need to listen, we need to actively listen, and we need to understand the left better than they understand themselves. That is the purpose of this exercise, okay? As part of that, I do ask that people refrain from debunking. You do not have a single debunk in your arsenal about the left is stupid because of reasons X, Y, B, and Z, or the left is her hypocrites for reasons X, Y, B, and Z. You don't have a single debunk that we haven't heard before, okay? And every time you put energy into debunking, that is energy that you're not putting into listening. So if I see you debunking, I'm going to tell you to stop, because you need to put that energy into listening instead. Lastly, break the rules of my chat or disrespect me in any way, and I'll just kick you out, and that's the way it is.
All right, so those are the rules of Socialism Saturday. We got a couple chats. Let's see. Cool Rog on Rumble says, I noticed your boobies got smaller since you lost weight. Yeah, because of course that's the most important thing about me. My tits do look great now, though. They look fucking great. They look really great. And you're just gonna have to see it and cope about that. Karlyn looks good at any weight she could do with a hair salon visit, though. That's actually true. I haven't actually gotten my hair cut in like 3 years or something like that. Lots of split ends. Probably could use for a hair salon visit, but you know what? One of us has hair. One of us has this problem. Just saying. Red Menace Nick says, for the mods, if BT breaks any rules, let Karlyn deal with it unless she says otherwise. He can be our special case. Oh yeah, he's a very special case. Yeah, he's a very, 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 very special case, but I don't want anyone being confused here. BT does not out-special Amalek. Amalek still has the highest special status on the channel. BT's way the fuck down here. There is a hierarchy in terms of the special case status. Amalek's up here, BT. I'm just being very clear about that for anyone who might be confused about that. Thanks, I am, for the super chat. Here for the whole damn show. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting the stream. Okay, Now we've done the rules video. Let's see. Let's get this party started, guys. We're going to be watching this video about how anarchy works, how Antifa is organized. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. And, if you appreciate what I do, if you learn something, if I make you laugh, if I make you cry, anything like that, please feel free to donate, super chats, channel memberships, whatever you guys like. All right. Let's listen.
Politicians, borders, landlords, police, or prison.
Oh, it's got an accent.
What if we didn't have bosses, politicians, borders, landlords, police, or prisons? There was a time when each of these things did not exist. And whatever you may believe now about their absolute necessity, have you considered that there can be a time again when we can do much better without them? Anarchists dare to desire a world without rule. Neither the rule of the minority, nor the rule of the majority. Neither the rule of the capitalists, nor the rule of the bureaucrats. Neither the rule of men, nor the rule of royalty, nor the rule of the elderly, nor the rule of warlords. Anarchy. Without rule.
No
The
hierarchy.
world around you illustrates the consequences of a life under archy, under rule. Do the details of the crises playing out before our eyes even bear repeating? By now we should realize that there is more to life than this. By now we should know that there is something wrong with a life of endless toil, soothed by commercial distractions for the power and profit of authorities, while the earth cries out and her children weep for lack of a future. How much longer do we let these rulers run our world to ruin? These are the social, political, economic, and environmental consequences of a life.
Yo, we got Anthony with 5 gifted channel memberships. W's to you, bro. Really, really appreciate it. So basically what this guy is saying is anytime there is a hierarchy, there is oppression. That's what the left believes about capitalism. They believe capitalism creates all hierarchies. Anytime there is a hierarchy, there is oppression. And what people need to understand is a lot of people don't believe that Antifa can organize in a non-hierarchical, decentralized way. But the reality is like, this is a core belief of their political ideology. They're not paid protesters. They're not paid to be part of this. They actually do believe this at the core of their identity. And so non-hierarchy, just a flat organizational structure, is what they believe at the core of their political identity. And they go through great lengths to set up organizing systems that are non-hierarchical, that are decentralized. They coordinate, but that's not the same as creating a capitalist-like hierarchy.
Under the rule of capitalists and statists. Beyond individual rulers, these are the consequences of hierarchical systems. Those above have the power to command obedience through police, courts, prisons, schooling, taxation, property, and other systems of control, and those below can only submit. Hierarchy is among the greatest obstacles to the full realization of a free and fulfilling social life.
See?
No one person or group sat down to design this world. It is a product of historical developments, material conditions, and social relations shaped by billions across time that have slowly, but not inevitably, entrenched specific systems of hierarchical power. Patriarchy, capitalism, the state. There's no reason to believe that this is the best we can do. The assumption that what currently exists must necessarily exist is the acid that corrodes all visionary thinking. Your ability to meet your needs, your ability to find belonging in the ups and downs of a free-forming social life, your ability to create and pursue life purpose, and your ability to explore the full spectrum of your potential is constricted by a life under rule. Anarchists dare to desire a world without rule, and for that, across the spectrum of politics, we are mocked, ridiculed, and defamed. But this message is for those who see what I see, who want to seek out new horizons for the future of humanity and a better way of life for oneself. For those, like me, who are ever seeking to learn and explore as much as possible. This message is for those curious about how we might organize anarchy.
See, so this is, I want people to really think about how this is being framed to people who have like inclinations towards something different. I think a lot of people know that it's not exactly a secret that a lot of people doubt capitalism, right? People on the right doubt capitalism and people on the left doubt capitalism because of all the like the absolute inaffordability of just like homes, even apartment rentals, groceries, like the basic necessities of life. A lot of people believe on both sides of the aisle, capitalism is failing. And you might say, well, they need to go get a job or they should have studied something different in college or like whatever, but it doesn't matter. If you can't get out into the world and find a way to make good money or get a job or get these things that your parents had, that's going like it's going to be a frustrating experience at some point. You could argue that they need to develop resiliency. That's probably true, but that doesn't change the perception at the time. And you need to understand the process of why people get radicalized to the far left, because we don't want to be existing in a place that creates more of these people. If you don't understand the dynamics of what's pushing them towards the left in the first place, then you can never stop this ideology. W's Vegas, thank you so much for the 5 gifted channel memberships, bro. Really, really appreciate the support. So they're coming into this world where they feel like everything is being set against them. And then along comes this ideology that says, we can create something better. We can create something without rulers. We can create something where we have access to everything that we need. Well, okay. Someone said something about Richard outside. Like, so I'm right here at the Portland ICE facility. There's a couple of homeless pay people. Like, Richard is not in Antifa. Richard is not an Antifa activist. We're not talking about homeless people who are being used. We are talking about actual Antifa activists here. And if you can't distinguish between Richard and actual Antifa, you don't know as much about the left as you think you do. And I've been in front of the Portland ICE facility. I've seen Richard. I've talked to Richard. I've actually also talked to real Antifa. They are two completely different fucking things. Okay. So this ideology is being presented as something aspirational, utopian. We can do all this together. We can create a better world. And in a reality where a lot of people are really struggling, which is the reality, regardless of if people want to admit it or not, this starts to sound very, very, very appealing. Okay? It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they're stupid. It's not that they're mentally ill. It's not that they want everything for free. It's that they are existing in a world that has become increasingly unaffordable just for every basic aspect of life. And they were born at an unfortunate time where it is harder for them than it was for their parents. And it was harder for their parents than it was for their grandparents, because our politicians fucking suck and they just keep making everything worse, regardless of if they're Democrat or fucking Republican. Okay? So these are people who are searching for a better way. The right is sure as shit not giving them a better way. The left is. And they're making videos and documentaries and doing social media to say, here is our aspirational view of the world, and we can do this if we do it together. That is why people get radicalized to the far left. It is not because they're paid protesters. It is not because they're stupid. It is not because they don't know history. It is not because they're lazy. It is not any of these things. It is because of the vision that is being offered by the people pushing this ideology. These are true believers. These are not fucking homeless retards who are being paid with food to stand outside the Portland ICE facility.
So, quick preface, this video is meant to be an intro for those new to the channel and a continuation of this now 4-year-long project. At this point, I've made 81 videos, of which 74 are publicly available. In order, these videos have documented my learning journey in anarchism and an abundance of other topics, supported exclusively by the patronage of viewers like videos in Marcus Work, such as how and as often rule the term given there to the it's widely misunderstood by non-anarchists and even some self-identifying anarchists. Although, to be fair, quoting anarchist Sean Wilbur, as long as there's been something called anarchism, anarchists have been struggling to define it. And, as often as not, they have been in struggle against other self-identified anarchists. While the term originated with Pierre Joseph Proudhon in Europe in the 19th century, the burning desire for freedom from rule that inspired it can be found across continents and eons. Anarchism is the term given to the political philosophy and practice that opposes all hierarchies.
It is central to the core of their belief that there is no hierarchy,
along with their justifying dogmas, and proposes the unending pursuit of anarchy, a world without rule where free association, self-determination, and mutual aid form the basis of our society.
Mutual aid forms the basis of society. Mutual aid is how the far left is funded. They are not funded by Soros. They are not funded by Neville Roy Singham and the CCP. They're not funded by USAID. They're not funded by NGOs. They are funded by mutual aid, and that is central to the core of the definition of the political philosophy that they have.
Free association, self-determination, and mutual aid form the basis of our society. By hierarchies, anarchists are referring to the stratification of society which gives some individuals, groups, or institutions authority over others. In this context, authority refers to the recognized right above others in a social relationship to give commands, make decisions, and enforce obedience. But why is it that anarchists oppose authority? Well, the main issue is that hierarchical authority divides society between rulers and ruled, with harmful consequences for both. It is not that anarchists assume that human nature is all good all the time, but rather, as anarchist Peter Kropotkin argued in Are We Good Enough, both rulers and ruled are spoiled by authority, and both exploiters and exploited are spoiled by exploitation. Anarchists admit the imperfections of human nature, but we make no exception for the rulers. When the interests of rulers are prioritized above all others, everyone suffers. Those at the top might enjoy power and privilege, but their narrow position impedes the flow of information and insulates them from the experiences, ideas, and perspectives of those below them that can contribute to everyone's well-being. Those at the bottom are compelled to obedience and subordination by a system greater than themselves, which fosters dependency and erodes our capacity to self-organize without authority and control our own destinies. Not to mention, hierarchy creates conflict, as authorities compete for control, subordinates compete for scraps, and authorities and subordinates clash over their opposing interests. One seeks greater power over, as the other seeks greater autonomy from. For these reasons and others, anarchists oppose authority, whether it's found in the spheres of society, economy, or politics. In order to organize anarchy, we need to be crystal clear about authority. There's no such thing as a universal and constant definition of any term, as meaning is constantly determined by our usage and debates over usage. Authority has been defined in many ways and contexts, but historically, anarchists have used it to refer to relations of command and subordination. I would argue that this definition is usefully specific, as we need to disentangle the authority that we oppose from the concepts that it has come to be jumbled with. In various conversations, I've seen authority and hierarchy get confused with force, violence, expertise, influence, respect, and coordination.
So what they're saying is that none of these things on this list represent hierarchy to them. This is where people get confused about Antifa and socialist organizing in general. They're not saying that, let's watch this list again with the sound off. Force, violence, expertise. Here, like, ignore the first two. So people wonder, like, okay, how can we say there are leaders in Antifa if there are no formal leaders? Well, the people who are the leaders on the far left, and in, like, not just Antifa, but the far left more generally, the people who are the leaders on the far left are the authors, the academics, and the activists, the people who are out there constantly speaking their ideas into the world. Those ideas trickle down into the other activists that are all across the country. That's how they have to communicate, right? They communicate on websites like the Anarchist Library. They communicate on websites like No Blogs. They communicate through all sorts of Crime Think, different publications where they're like, here are our ideas and here's what we're doing in the world. And then that trickles down to the masses. The people writing those ideas are the authors, the academics, and the activists. And anyone can be part of one of those. Anyone can be a part of all three of those. It's not necessarily that they're mutually exclusive from each other. Many people are all three, okay? So when they're talking about hierarchy, they're not talking about expertise. They're not talking about influence. They're not talking about respect. And they're not talking about coordination. They are talking about there is no explicit chain of command. There's no one ruling us. There's no one telling us what to do. That doesn't mean they can't coordinate with each other. That doesn't mean that they don't respect some people more than others. It doesn't mean that there aren't some people who have more influence, but it's not about the individual. Any individual can be removed from any sort of position of influence on the left at any time. Robin DiAngelo up and disappeared years and years and years ago because she was saying a lot of inconvenient shit that wasn't even in line with what most far leftists believe anyway. And so have we heard from Robin DiAngelo in years and years and years? She's been almost completely silent. Ibram X. Kendi fucked up at BU. So he was plucked out of that position and tossed aside. And have we really heard from Ibram X. Kendi lately? No, we haven't. So when people are on the left are like influential or the leaders of the left, keep in mind, it's not about the individual person. It is about the role that they are fulfilling. It is about the dissemination of ideas. And if someone starts to say a lot of inconvenient shit, they can be like plucked out of that position and tossed aside and replaced with someone else very, very, very easily. So they're telling you explicitly, just because someone is respected by people, just because we might coordinate, does not mean there is an official oppressive hierarchy. They view these as two different things. I hope that makes sense. In order to defeat it, you need to learn as much about them as you possibly can. And if you are unwilling to do that, there is nothing that you can do to defeat them. So have a seat. Class is in session. That's what needs to be done.
Conversations, I've seen authority and hierarchy get confused with force, violence, expertise, influence, respect, and coordination. None of those concepts on their own necessarily grant authority, as in the recognized right above others in a social relationship to give commands, make decisions, and enforce obedience. Authorities might use force or violence to maintain their authority in certain cases, but the use of force or violence alone does not bestow authority. Using force to pull someone out of traffic doesn't make you an authority. As for violence, the ruling class and other authorities don't even directly carry out violence, at least not usually. That is the work of their subordinates in the police and military, whom they authorize to use violence.
The police and the military are the subordinates of the ruling class. That is why the far left wants to abolish the police. And they want to get rid of the military as it currently exists, but they're much more focused on the police. That's what all that shit was about in Madison, Wisconsin. That was about abolishing the police. That's what the BLM riots were in 2020. It was about abolishing the police. That's what the Chaz was in Seattle. It was about abolishing the police because they believe that the police are like the lower level people, the subordinates of the ruling class who carry out the violent will of the ruling class. Does that make sense to everyone? This is why the left is never, ever, 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 ever going to stop with the abolish the police stuff. It's never going to go away. They are not going to be satisfied until the police as we currently know it today are gone, because they cannot overthrow capitalism unless they abolish the police, because the police are the puppets of the ruling class. Listen again.
Violence, the ruling class and other authorities don't even directly carry out violence, at least not usually. That is the work of their subordinates in the police and military, whom they authorize to use violence. It is the ruling class's recognized right above their subordinates to command that violence in a hierarchical power structure that gives them authority. If that right was not recognized, and their subordinates did not accept subordination to their commands, then that authority could not exist. Which is why authority is primarily maintained by sheer inertia and social conditioning rather than outright violence. Expertise merely refers to one's knowledge or skill in a particular field, but my understanding of CPR or ability to make shortbread cookies does not make me an authority over you. Other than the conflation of force and authority, this is one of the most common confusions people have about anarchism, made worse by the fact that there are some anarchists who still use authority to refer to both command and expertise, just because Bakunin did. Personally, I find that creates needless confusion. If you're using the word authority to describe everything from slavery to knowing how to build a bridge, then why use the word at all? Just use the word expertise when you're talking about expertise. Listening to medical advice isn't a hierarchy. Having expertise doesn't give me the right to command you, unless I hold a position in a hierarchical power structure that grants me that authority. As Bakunin himself said, we ask nothing better than to see men endowed with great knowledge, great experience, great minds, and above all, great hearts, exert over us a natural and legitimate influence, freely accepted and never imposed in the name of any official authority whatsoever, celestial or terrestrial. On the topic of influence, as should be clear, the mere capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone is far more expansive than a relationship of command and subordination. As for respect, some authorities might demand respect as in obedience to their will, but no authority can demand that you feel respect for them, as in deep admiration elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. That is beyond their control. Finally, Coordination might be more difficult to conceptually disentangle from authority, but I don't think the act of ensuring that the moving parts in an activity work together effectively requires command per se. In fact, it doesn't need to be undertaken by just one person. It's something that multiple people can engage in. Coordination can be conceptualized in anarchy not as making decisions for others, but more as information transfer in a free agreement between equals. This is qualitatively different from command, as it just involves supplementing the capacities of others with a shared commitment to the smooth execution of tasks by keeping track and ensuring that people are.
See, they have a shared commitment to the mutual execution of tasks without anyone being the ruler over anyone else. It's like working with people on a committee. Has one in the chat, if you've ever been involved in any sort of like committee at your kid's school or a church or, God forbid, in higher education or anywhere else, has anyone ever been on a committee before? One in the chat if you've been on a committee. Two in the chat if you, or politics. Politics does a lot of committee shit. Two in the chat if you've never been on a committee before. Basically, a committee is a bunch of people who are charged with doing shit. And usually there's like a chair of the committee. That's the person who runs the meetings. That's the job of the chair, is to make sure the meetings are run in like an orderly fashion. And then there are other people on the committee that might have jobs, like, you know, if you're like a PTA committee or something like that, you know, Johnny's mom is going to be responsible for bringing the brownies. And then Charlie's mom is going to be responsible for bringing the fucking cupcakes or whatever. It's not that like Johnny's mom has status over Charlie's mom because she's bringing brownies and the others bring cupcakes. I don't know what the fucking PTA does, okay? But like, they all have different roles and they all have a goal of executing some sort of bake sale or some such shit. And then everyone is playing a different role within the committee, and this person's is in charge of getting the tables for the bake sale, and this person is in charge of creating flyers for the bake sale or whatever the fuck they're doing. It's not that anyone rules over anyone else, it's that everyone has a different task and they all have to work together and respect the role of other people on the committee, not because one is better or worse or like above another, but because they're all trying to work together to execute a fucking bake sale. That is how the left is organized. It's not as though there's any leader saying, you will do this. No, when you're saying delegation, that is hierarchical. That is someone saying, you will do this. That's not what it is. It's volunteer. I'll bring the brownies. I'll bring the cupcakes. It's volunteering. It's like when you go and you do a sign-up sheet for what you're going to bring for the fucking potluck. And that's not delegation. That's volunteering. The distinction between the two matters. Okay? Does everyone understand what I'm talking about? This is how Antifa is organizing. People are volunteering and saying, I will do X, Y, B, and Z. And they're all working together towards a common goal where people just have different tasks that they're doing. How do they fund those things that they're doing? They hold out the collection plate like they do at church. And they say, can you give $20? Can you give $10? That is what mutual aid is. It is holding out the collection plate and having the community donate to fund whatever thing they might be working on at the time. 1 in the chat if you're tracking, 2 in the chat if you're confused. One in the chat if that made sense, 2 in the chat if you're confused. It's okay to be confused. I just want to know if you are. Cool. Okay. If you're confused, please let me know how you're confused and I'll try to answer.
Aware of what others are doing in a project. To reiterate, the point of this exercise in disentangling authority from concepts like force, violence, expertise, influence, respect, and coordination, so that we can preempt this confusion of concepts authorities like to use to naturalize their rule. If we don't grasp these distinctions, we're not going to be able to understand anarchism on its own terms, nor effectively resist hierarchy. With all that out of the way, we can finally begin to explore how we might organize anarchy. As humans, none of us exist in isolation. The dichotomy between the individual and the collective is a false one. The freedom and well-being of the former is inextricably linked to the freedom and well-being of the latter. We rely on each other for various aspects of our lives, and that reliance creates a web of mutual interdependence that forms the basis of any human society, whether hierarchical.
This is collectivism. This is why they are collectivists. The left is not individualist. The left are collectivists because they believe everyone is responsible for everyone else. I understand what you're saying, but there is no one overseeing it. No one. There is no one overseeing the whole thing. That would be hierarchical. They are non-hierarchical. They are decentralized. There is no leader. There is no funder. There is no Soros. There is no Neville Roysingham of the CCP. There is no one. It is non-hierarchical.
Or anarchic. Hierarchical society creates norms, practices, and institutions that shape how we cooperate. The predominance of hierarchy, paired with our mutual interdependence, compels us to obey authority and participate in exploitative systems, whether we want to or not. Organizing anarchy will involve developing consciously anarchic norms, practices, and institutions that will reshape the way that we cooperate on the basis of our mutual interdependence without hierarchy. By recognizing our mutual interdependence, we can understand the concept of collective force, which refers to the combined productive power generated by individuals working together as a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. In the context of anarchy, your individual labor must still intermingle with others to accomplish tasks, but your labor does so without the imposition of hierarchy, as collective force is instead harnessed through free association. Free association is the founding principle of anarchic social organization and refers to the ability of each individual to move around and associate or disassociate with others as they so choose without being subject to authority. Free association empowers individuals to connect with each other and form groups based around shared interests or desired actions to pursue those interests or actions. Groups don't form without a specific goal in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I guess don't AA meetings have like leaders though? Isn't there like, I've never been to an AA meeting. I don't know, but like, it's not really an AA meeting in that like AA is not a collectivist political philosophy, right? If someone's going to an AA meeting, they're acting as an individual, but like what we're talking about is a group trying to achieve political goals. They just do things in line with their ideology. And they coordinate with each other via websites. No one is saying, you will do this. They're saying, here's some ideas I have, and here's some ideas I have, and here's some more ideas over here, and here's some more ideas over here. And then people just go do things. There is no leader. There is no oversight. That's not how it works.
Whether that is maintaining roads, producing and distributing food, or building housing. In anarchy, the ability to accomplish anything is proportional to the will of free people to get it done. You cannot order someone else.
The ability to accomplish anything is in accordance with the free will of free people to get it done. You cannot order someone else. That they are just explicitly explaining it. Accomplishing things requires the desire to do so. It requires the voluntary desire of people to take action to do those things. No one can order anyone else. They are saying this explicitly.
Food or building housing. In anarchy, the ability to accomplish anything is proportional to the will of free people to get it done. You cannot order someone else. Deciders and doers are the same people. So if it won't be done without subordinating people to the will of authority, it doesn't get done. As a natural consequence of groups forming around existing points of consensus and intended goals, rather than trying to subsume diverse interests into a static entity that exists for its own sake, the social fabric is continuously altered as groups inevitably overlap, merge, split, and dissolve. Of course, forming groups around shared interests doesn't prevent conflict between groups. But since the escalation of conflict can upset the social equilibrium in unpredictable, potentially harmful ways, everyone is incentivized to...
Okay, I'm gonna read you what this says because he's saying stuff over it, but I want to read what the slide says. Obviously, not everyone will behave rationally in all cases. There will always be deviations from the norm, but I'm arguing here that we can expect a general norm of altruism because it is structurally incentivized by our mutual interdependence under anarchic social relations. What he is speaking to here is the belief that they have that if they abolish capitalism, pretty much all crime will go away. Karlyn, how are they going to abolish the police? What are they going to do with the criminals? The left believes that if they abolish capitalism, the vast majority of crime will go away because they believe capitalism creates all crime. So what they're saying here is they're basically kind of hedging their bets a little bit, and they're saying, listen, we know there's still going to be deviations from the rule. We know there's still going to be bad people who do bad things. But what we're betting is that most people, if given the opportunity and if given their needs taken care of, they will behave in an altruistic way towards the community. So they're not saying we think absolutely zero crime will exist. They're saying it will be substantially reduced to an insignificant degree because it's just these exceptions to the rule. It's not the rule of how people are going to behave. You might not agree with them. That's fucking fine. That is what they believe. We need each other to meet our needs, and the incentive to avoid harming each other lies in that recognition that harming others ultimately harms oneself. Each individual's self-interest is tied to the well-being of other individuals, known and unknown, so disrupting social stability affects everyone. It doesn't matter if you agree with it. The point is not to agree with it. The point is that you need to understand this to understand the left. So it does not matter how far-fetched you think it is. It truly doesn't. What matters is that you understand it. W's Mario, thank you so much for the 5 gifted channel memberships, bro. Appreciate the support. Thanks for funding the stream. Guys, we are 25% of the way to our goal. If I teach you something new in this class, please feel free to show your appreciation by dropping some channel memberships in the chat. That would be awesome. Let's see. Where did I stop reading? Under hierarchical systems, self-seeking to the detriment of others provides benefit to oneself that outweighs the broader social costs. Thus, harm is structurally encouraged for those in a position of authority. What is needed is a social system where self-seeking to the detriment of others is not protected by authority and does not incur benefits and outweighs the broader social costs. So what they're saying is, if someone is acting in a counterproductive way to the collective and what the collective wants and the general good of the collective, that person is going to experience disincentives from the community to act that way. They're saying that there's going to be social disincentives to behave outside the collective, and there will be social incentives for being a productive member of the collective. And that is why crime will be substantially reduced. That is why they expect people to kind of acclimate to this new world, because there will be incentives to do so. And that is why they believe that they don't need the police or anything like that, because it will be a fundamentally different type of thing. Does everyone understand? Doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't fucking matter. That's not what we're here to talk about. Doesn't fucking matter. What matters is what they believe.
Urge, split, and dissolve. Of course, forming groups around shared interests doesn't prevent conflict between groups. But since the escalation of conflict can upset the social equilibrium in unpredictable, potentially harmful ways, everyone is incentivized to prevent escalation and adjust to find compromise. In the absence of legal order implied by anarchy, mutual responsibility informed by our mutual interdependence will guide our action. Since there is no authority to impose a set of rules and punishments, conflicts are
Okay. Being productive in the chat. Didn't see that coming. All right, fine.
resolved organically as they emerge. It's not that there aren't consequences, quite the opposite in fact. It is just that consequences are not predefined. Free association creates a social environment of constant negotiation and consultation where needed to avoid unnecessary conflicts. Because you can't form an entire settlement around a point of consensus, and because shared territory is rather limited in its ability to unify.
Yeah, who's begging now? Who's begging now?
By diverse interests, It begs the question of what the commune...
Listen, can I just encourage this behavior? If you want to get drunk tonight and give me $100, can I just encourage that behavior? As long as I don't have to show my boobs or anything. I mean, I know the Pisces in the chat would really get off on that, but like, as long as I don't have to do anything, you can totally give me $100. That would totally be fine. That goes for you too. I feel like you owe me on some level for all those super chats that I sent you that you never fucking answered. Just saying.
Even looks like in the context of anarchy. The anarchist commune can be easily confused with intentional communities or administrative divisions. But if we're going by Kropotkin's description in Words of a Rebel, chapters 10 to 11 make it clear that Kropotkin used the term commune to describe any group formed on the basis of free association.
You fucking wish you saw my boobs. You were this close to seeing my boobs, but you didn't. So, haha, too bad, so sad. And they look much better now anyway, so keep thirsting, bruh.
In fact, he juxtaposes the free commune with traditional conceptions of it, claiming for us, commune no longer means a territorial agglomeration. It is rather a generic name, a synonym for the grouping of equals which knows neither frontiers nor walls. The social commune will soon cease to be a clearly defined entity.
Hang on. Where is that? Something about walls. Okay. The commune is a synonym for a grouping of equals which knows neither frontiers nor walls. There are no borders at the commune. There are no borders around the country. There are no borders around the state. There are no borders around the town. There are no borders around your house. There are no borders in the commune, okay? They're saying it explicitly. That's what they mean by walls. With all my weight loss, I'm going to start calling you Twiggy. Don't, please, don't. Why don't? But thanks for the $10. I appreciate it. The commune belongs to everyone. Yep, everything belongs to everyone else. You will own nothing and you will be happy. All that good stuff.
Group in the commune will necessarily be drawn towards similar groups in other communes. They will come together, and the links that federate them will be as solid as those that attach them to their fellow citizens. And in this way, there will emerge a commune of interests whose members are scattered in 1,000 towns and villages. Each individual will find the full satisfaction of his needs only by grouping with other individuals who have the same tastes, but inhabit 100 other communes. Kropotkin's commune is essentially a fluid collective of individuals and groups, wherever they find themselves, coming together of their own volition and according to their shared interests, projects, and activities.
We gotta watch that Jim Jones documentary again. I feel like I want to watch that. Does one in the chat if you want to watch that Jim Jones documentary about Jonestown again? Two in the chat if that's a bad idea.
Without being bound by territorial designations. This is what distinguishes the anarchist commune from the municipal democracy of Bookchin's communalism. This commune does not require that the individuals involved subordinate themselves to some form of local government made up of the whole. In other words, a truly anarchist commune does not take on the polity form, but the concept and critique of the polity form may require further explanation. Wilbur uses polity form as a descriptor for more or less fixed, static associations or organizations that anthropomorphize social collectivities as bodies with the organs of direction placed in some head. He argues that this archaic conception of social organization tends to inform our understandings of the patriarchal family, the governmental state, the capitalist...
The patriarchal family.
Inform our understandings of the patriarchal family.
That means the capitalist family, the bourgeois family, the nuclear family.
The governmental state.
Anytime they're saying the state, they mean the United States government, and specifically for like anarchists in America, obviously.
The capitalist firm.
Oh, capitalism, look at that.
The democratic people, and sometimes even the anarchistic commune, community, or federation. As Wilbur points out, even when in a democracy or some forms of communism, the people at the top of the hierarchy is presumed to be the sum of the persons at the bottom, the doubling is almost always explicitly for the purpose of imposing the will of the whole on more recalcitrant parts. In other words, the domination of the minority by the majority. When we start with some abstract grouping like the community that may not necessarily share any real interests in common, and then place some decision-making system at its head that is responsible for identifying and enacting the will of this abstract entity, it tends to take a life of its own, often led by the group's most dominant voices, and subordinate real individuals to the will of the nebulous collective. Organized anarchy must involve breaking free of this polity form. The alternative principle of social organization lies in federation, not in the sense of networking conventional static polities like a
Like in
confederation of
Starship
city-states,
Troopers.
but instead bringing together the information and perspectives necessary to facilitate the dynamic process of free association. We'll explore how we can visualize this concept of federation later on. But now that we understand at least the basics of these concepts, we can take a moment to reflect on what falls short of organizing anarchy. For some time now, there's been a debate among anarchists concerning the idea of democracy. Historical anarchists have mostly abhorred it, but these days, some anarchists oppose democracy while other anarchists support democracy. Some say the debate is just a matter of semantics, others argue that it most certainly is not.
The left believes the only true form of democracy is socialism.
Anarchist YouTuber Zoe Baker's video on anarchism and democracy is treated by many as having settled that debate. She can
Is that fucking Jeremy Kaufman?
video on anarchism and democracy.
That looks like Jeremy Kaufman. That would be hilarious.
Is treated by many as having settled that debate. She concludes that modern and historical anarchists advocate the same core positions, and what many modern anarchists label as democracy without the state, historical anarchists just called free association or anarchy. For a long time, I considered myself neutral in this debate, indeed considering the distinction mostly semantic. I accepted Baker's conclusions and moved on. But since then, I've concluded through research that pro-democracy and anti-democracy anarchists are not, in fact, just describing the same thing with different language. I understand that democracy has some positive associations that some anarchists, myself formerly included, may want to latch on to a very misunderstood ideology. But I no longer believe that democracy can ever be truly descriptive of anarchy. To understand how I reached this conclusion, let's start with the definition of democracy. Now, democracy is a historically contested term, but it is also widely understood primarily as a form of government by the whole population, typically through elected representatives. It is also used to describe the control of an organization or group.
Okay, so based on the definition that he just gave, democracy is let me get it specifically so I don't flub it.
Now, democracy is a historically contested term, but it is also widely understood primarily as a form of government by the whole population, typically through elected representatives.
So it's the definition he's saying is democracy is a form of government of the whole population, typically through elected representatives. Okay. Based on that definition alone, why does the left believe that we do not have a democracy in the US? And I don't want you to just say because we don't, because it's a republic. Okay, fine. But like, why does the left believe the United States does not currently have a democracy and that they have to overthrow the government and implement socialism in order to create one? Because that's what they believe. They believe the United States government is preventing democracy. They believe the only way to have a true democracy, as they define it, is to overthrow the government and implement socialism. Why? Does anyone know? Because of the Electoral College. That is one of the reasons. Another one. There are like three big ones that I can, role of the president, the role of the judges, the role of the Supreme Court specifically, but all courts really. There's one more thing. There's one more thing. So we've got Electoral College, we've got courts. What is the third thing that they don't like about the government? Everyone heard the DSA say it like a couple weeks ago. What did the DSA say a couple weeks ago? That they wanted to abolish, not the police. It has to do with the government. They do want to abolish the Constitution, but, well, that's, I guess, the fourth one. The Constitution is the fourth. That's not what I was looking for. What branch of government does not have proportional representation? The Senate. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The fucking Senate. Yeah. The Senate, the courts, the Electoral College. The Constitution is just built to uphold capitalism, so they want to abolish that. The Senate. Well done.
It is also used to describe the control of an organization or group by the majority of its members. Looking at its etymology, democracy quite literally means rule by the people. Demos, the people, and kratos, the rule. As anarchist Peter Gelderloos recognized in his Reflections for the US Occupy movement, from the very origins of the democratic concept, ruled by the people.
Because it's not proportional representation, because every state has two regardless. So they don't believe that senators are actually representing the populace because it's not proportional representation. Just give in to the urge to super chat, bro. Super chat. It's all good.
Has always been a way to increase participation in the project of government, and the people have always excluded classes of slaves and foreigners, whether inside or outside of national boundaries. The question of freedom lies not in who rules, but whether anyone is ruled, or whether all are self-organizing. Anarchy means no rule, making it inherently incompatible with democracy on purely etymological grounds. But anarchist proponents of democracy use the term to describe either a particular system of direct democracy, or rather broadly as a synonym for making decisions, which is a rather unique use of the term. They argue that true democracy is direct democracy that exists outside of and against the state. But as the anonymous writers at CrimeThink identify in From Democracy to Freedom, there are fundamental problems with this approach. Their main contention is that democracy has historically been used to describe government, and that history cannot be so easily erased through linguistic prescription. Furthermore, quote, any form of government requires some way of determining who can participate in decision-making and on what terms. Once again, who counts as the demos? And if there is no way of enforcing decisions, no kratos, the decision-making processes of government will have no more weight than decisions people make autonomously. Now, I can't speak on all pro-democracy anarchists, as I've seen them use the term to describe quite different systems. So I'll focus on just one established proponent of anarchist democracy. Not Graeber, because he defines democracy vaguely enough to include direct democracy, consensus, and basically any problem solving that takes place in a group. Not Bookchin, because even he eventually realized anarchism wasn't compatible with majority rule and created his own ideology. Not Chomsky, because his grasp on anarchism is questionable at best. Instead, we'll look at the guy who consistently described anarchism as democracy without the state, Wayne Price. In Anarchism as Extreme Democracy, Price argues that while more areas of life should exist outside the realm of collective decision-making, where needed, such decision-making falls into a dichotomy of either minority rule, which he finds and opposes in both capitalist democracies and consensus systems, or majority rule, which he describes and supports as direct democracy. He argues in favor of majority rule with accommodations for minority rights, going as far as to state that minority rights are safest when the majority rules. But when minorities find themselves opposed to majorities, Price only offers them the option to voice their position and try to win a majority to their views. It should go without saying that despite Price's insistence, this system of majority rule does not describe anarchy. If hierarchy refers to a relationship of command and subordination, and if the majority commands the minority be subordinated to their decisions binding on the whole, then this direct democracy, while extremely participatory, is still a form of hierarchy. As CrimeThink points out in the aforementioned article, the important distinction is not between democracy and the state, then, but between government and self-determination. Government is the exercise of authority over a given space or polity, whether the process is dictatorial or participatory. The end result is the imposition of control. By contrast, self-determination means disposing of one's potential on one's own terms. When people engage in it together, they're not ruling each other, but fostering cumulative autonomy. Freely made agreements require no enforcement. Systems that concentrate legitimacy in a single institution or decision-making process always do. It's true that some historical anarchists have ended up organizing along democratic lines. But the question here isn't whether that excuses us in the present to organize our way or not. The question is whether that mode of organizing gets us closer to the goal of anarchy. Does retaining that form of rule, however decentralized or participatory, get us any closer to a world without rule? As Proudhon recognized in his manuscript writings on Napoleon III, archy or anarchy, no middle ground. Archy can have one or several heads: monarchy, polyarchy, oligarchy, exarchy, heptarchy, etc. If the polyarchy is composed of the wealthiest or of the nobles and magnates, it is called aristocracy. If the people en masse is the predominant element there, it is a democracy. But the number of heads changes nothing in the end. Early in his politics, anarchist Enrico Malatesta was in favor of majority voting within anarchist organizations when there was no consensus. Yet he still conceded that decisions should only be binding on those who favored them. Later on, he would reject the rule of the majority entirely. Exactly 100 years ago, in 1924, he wrote, "Therefore, those who really want government of the people, in the sense that each can assert his or her own will, ideas, and needs, must ensure that no one, majority or minority, can rule over others. In other words, they must abolish government, meaning any coercive organization, and replace it with the free organization of those with common
Will I debate a communist? What would be the point in that? Why? Like, I'm not going to convince a communist. They're not going to convince me. So what's the point?
interests and aims." Malatesta's position resonates with a slew of both historical and modern anarchists, as documented in the article Anarchists Against Democracy and elsewhere. Anarchist Tasso Sagris argues that, quote, "Homogeneity is the ultimate imperative of any democratic procedure, direct or representational, a homogeneity that ends up as two final opinions, the majority and minority, losing the vast richness of human intelligence and sensibility, erasing all the complexity and diversity of human needs and desires." Anarchist Bob Black, meanwhile, lists as many as 18 solid objections to democracy, both direct and representative, in his article Debunking Democracy. As he concludes, neither version exhibits any clear advantage over the other, and each also has vices peculiar to itself. It's still free to advocate for direct democracy, but it's plain inaccurate to conflate it with anarchy, because the anarchist alternative...
I don't think it's a good use. Okay. One in the chat if you guys need to be convinced that communism is bad. Two in the chat if you already know that communism is bad and you don't need anyone to participate in a debate with a communist to tell you that. Who the fuck am I going to convince that communism is bad that doesn't already fucking believe it? It's a giant waste of time. I have a bigger problem convincing conservatives that Democrats and communists are not the same fucking thing. I have a bigger problem with conservatives not understanding the difference between progressive groups like Indivisible and fucking Antifa. Okay? That's much more relevant to what's going on and what I care about than whatever any communist thinks.
to majority rule via direct democracy and minority rule via capitalist democracy is no rule, no democracy, just free association. Some of the pro-democracy anarchists might then argue that they are not in favor of majority rule. They do desire free association. They just use the term democracy.
I will debate 10 conservatives at once that conservative media is lying to their audience about the left. Yeah, I would do that.
For rhetorical purposes to refer to any egalitarian collaboration between people, with decisions not binding upon them. But again, without kratos, without rule, why even call it democracy? With all its connotations and baggage. I'm no longer convinced that the label democracy can be accurately applied to all forms of collective, egalitarian organization. It might seem convenient as an entry point, but looking solely through its lens can also mislead and elicit further confusion about what anarchy actually entails. If we want people to actually understand anarchism, we have to challenge them to critically think about even their most cherished ideals. Democracy is a historically contested term, and everyone seems to want a piece of the pie. As Bob Black observed, for champions of capitalism, democracy is inseparable from capitalism. For champions of socialism, democracy is inseparable from socialism.
See? The definition that we have of a democracy in the United States, because the United States is a form of capitalism, the country itself is a form of capitalism, the Constitution is written to protect capitalism. Democracy in the United States is not the same as what they want. They believe that socialism is the only true form of democracy. Does this make sense to everyone? The left believes that the United States government and the Constitution was built to protect the property rights of the bourgeois. Capitalism is private property ownership. Therefore, democracy in the United States is not real democracy to them because it's about protecting the rights of the property owner. Socialism to them is the only true form of democracy.
It is a historically contested term, and everyone seems to want a piece of the pie. As Bob Black observed, for champions of capitalism, democracy is inseparable from capitalism.
Bro,
for champions of socialism,
you're not teaching
democracy
this class.
is inseparable from
Don't care.
socialism.
Don't
Democracy
care
is even said to be inseparable from anarchism. It is identified with the good, the true, and the beautiful. But although many good things, such as discussions, collectives, assemblies, networks, and anarchic federations, have been described as democratic, it may be better to view them outside that lens of governance. Perhaps we should look at the positive values that drew us to democracy in the first place, like egalitarianism,
Socialism.
inclusivity, and self-determination, and take the time to properly evaluate whether democracy can effectively actualize such values. In the end, democracy is not the same as egalitarianism, inclusivity, or self-determination. Democracy is a historically contested term, but that doesn't mean it can be stretched to near meaninglessness. Words still mean things. No matter how much you might try to rebrand it, democracy still refers to rule. As anarchist William Gillis argues in The Abolition of Rulership, etymology isn't destiny, but it does carry a strong momentum and corrective force. The language we use matters. And yes, anarchy is also a nebulous term to some, as is freedom, but, quote, the fight over anarchy is an inescapable one for anarchists, because the world we want will never be obtainable as long as the term's historical definition of chaotic, violent, dog-eat-dog situations of strong, albeit decentralized, power relations goes unchallenged. The battle over democracy is not so inescapable. We can afford to let go of democracy and popularize a far more descriptive and accurate term: free association. But wait, I hear you asking, what
So they
about
want to
consensus?
overthrow democracy as
Nearly
we
3
currently
years
know it,
ago, I
because it
released a
upholds
video on
capitalism.
consensus.
Yo,
Since
Focus, thanks so much for the gifted channel membership. Really appreciate it. W's to you, my dear.
then, I've been meaning to follow up on it. While I was aware of democracy's flaws back then and considered consensus a more valid alternative, I hadn't fully questioned some of my underlying assumptions. I still recommend that you watch the old video, as it does still hold up in some respects, but now, after 3 years of study, I have a few critiques of past Andrew's video. Starting from the beginning, I don't think my definition of hierarchy was precise enough. I defined hierarchy as any system or relationship of coercive power and domination. But these days I find it more useful to focus on the relationship of command and subordination, as I don't believe the term coercion alone accurately describes the dynamic most prominently at play. Moving on from that small quibble, in both the original title and description of my video, I referred to the process as consensus democracy. I've since corrected it because, unlike anarchist David Graeber, I don't think it's accurate to describe consensus as a form of democracy by equating all decision-making with democracy. I think it just creates further confusion, particularly with the implication of voting that democracy carries. If consensus is treated as direct democracy taken to its extreme, and one that was observed in the General Assemblies of Occupy Wall Street, as the writers at Crime Think recognized in From Democracy to Freedom, though David Graeber encouraged participants to regard consensus as a set of principles rather than rules, both the proponents of consensus process and its authoritarian opponents persisted in treating it as a formal means of government. While anarchists who shared Graeber's framework found themselves outside the consensus reality of their fellow occupiers. I think my description of consensus in the video was slightly more flexible, as I defined it as a decision-making process founded on consent among the members of a group. Accordingly, consensus aims to value every voice and concern, foster an environment where conflict is embraced and resolved cooperatively rather than avoided or dismissed, and find creative solutions that improve upon initial proposals. The consensus process, as I described it, requires commitment, trust, respect, active participation, self-empowerment, and a common goal. It also requires a ton of patience, as the process involves submitting proposals, clarifying questions, and often lengthy general discussions where
Okay,
all
what they're describing right now is the way that they come together to make decisions. I understand this might be a little bit boring, but this is important. People ask me all the time. They're like, Karlyn, what do they want? What do they want post-capitalism? They are describing to you what they want. You are going to see this in play when we do socialism conference coverage coming up in a couple weeks, because the socialism conference is coming up. The socialism conference is awesome. It's basically like the 4th of July. And yet you're still here. And yet you're still here. That's okay. That's okay. So what they're describing to you, you're going to see this play out at the Socialism Conference, where basically what happens at the Socialism Conference is you're going to have a bunch of presentations. We're going to get a whole panel of socialists, and they're going to get up and they're going to tell us what they think. And then the audience is going to get up and say what they think. And then there's going to be some back and forth and yada, 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 yada. That is how they want society to work. That is how they believe communities are going to work. And they believe in bringing conflict into like these group meeting environments where some people might get up and say, I disagree with you because of reason X, Y, B, and Z or whatever. Then the people on the panel have to respond to them. It makes the whole process of like governing things or coming up with decisions to be much longer and drawn out. And you're going to hear all sorts of stupid shit from stupid people, but they're dealing with the conflict more directly, which is not what the right does. The right deals with all conflict very passive aggressively, where you're not allowed to bring things up in meetings. And then people talk about you behind your back and do all sorts of underhanded shit and stuff like that. So the left may have a lot of faults, but they do actually deal with conflict much more effectively because they do it in like a group setting, and they have all these processes and procedures for like working through when people disagree on things and how to overcome that. And that's why like people ask about, can we create infighting in leftist groups? And really you can't, because their method of dealing with conflict, generally speaking, is much more productive. You can create infighting between some leftist groups, like Antifa does not like the Party for Socialism and Liberation. The Party for Socialism and Liberation does not like Antifa. They do fight with each other, but like, are you going to create conflict within the PSL? Probably not. Are you going to create conflict within Antifa? Probably not.
Side the consensus reality of their fellow occupiers. I think my description of consensus in the video was slightly more flexible, as I defined it as a decision-making process founded on consent among the members of a group. Accordingly, consensus aims to value every voice and concern, foster an environment where conflict is embraced and resolved cooperatively rather than avoided or dismissed, and find creative solutions that improve upon initial proposals. The consensus process, as I described it, requires commitment, trust, respect, active participation.
It does not matter to them. It does not matter to them why they comply. Do they take into consideration that people comply out of a desire to be accepted? Doesn't fucking matter. What matters is that they work through the conflict productively, and people either get on board or they don't. And they don't really care why people get on board as long as they get on board.
And a common goal. It also requires a ton of patience, as the process involves submitting proposals, clarifying questions, and often lengthy general discussions where all concerns are listed and explored, and consensus is sought after each resolution. If consensus isn't reached, individuals have the option to either stand aside or use their veto to block the proposal. Although I did mention the need for a unity of purpose for the group and acknowledge that consensus wouldn't work for all situations, I still carried on the video with the implicit assumption that I was describing an ideal process for a fixed, rigid group. Some of my criticisms of the problems with consensus, such as issues with vetoing or the need for splinter groups to amplify the voices of marginalized folks within larger collectives, carry that implicit assumption that we're dealing with a fixed polity. Even my concession to majority rule in instances where consensus fails exemplifies that unconscious bias. But free association implies far—
Okay, guys, I'm going to make a deal with you. In the spirit of the person complaining about the boring content, 1 in the chat if you guys want to watch a Jim Jones documentary, 2 in the chat if you think that sounds like a bad idea. The reason I'm kind of like, I'm really kind of like thinking about the Jim Jones documentary is he was creating an entire socialist commune. Like they were overtly socialist. Also, it's just interesting and dystopian and whatever. 1 in the chat if you want to watch the Jim Jones documentary. 2 in the chat if that sounds boring and stupid and lame. Okay, here's the deal I'm going to make. We have 20 more minutes of this video. If we can get up past 50 gifted channel memberships in the next 20 minutes, then we will watch the Jim Jones documentary. We're going to finish this video. We don't start shit and not finish it just because some Pisces is having feelings in the chat, all right? We're going to finish the video. But if we get over 50 channel memberships in the next 20 minutes, the length of this video, we will watch the Jim Jones documentary. If we don't, we're not going to watch it, and you freeloaders can go watch it on your own, okay? So that's the deal. You guys, there we go. See, Malcolm's already in. Thank you so much, Malcolm. W's to you, good sir. Appreciate the 10 channel memberships. Big support.
far more fluidity in group formation and composition.
Malcolm is going to
It does away with the polity
Jim
form.
Jones
In
documentary.
fact, it's a bit out of order to say that a proposal is brought to the group, especially if the group is some centralized entity that has the power to permit or forbid action within a certain territory. If we're describing a situation of free association, it would be more accurate.
Some channel memberships, Saya. Some channel memberships, if you please. Lisa O'Grady, thanks so much for the super sticker. Appreciate it.
To describe a group forming around a proposal, aka an existing point of consensus. If that's the case, then there's no need for standing aside or vetoes within the group. Just consultation with those outside the group who might have valid concerns and consideration of what resources are available to accomplish the task. In this context, free association provides the best means to achieve flexible social forms that truly benefit their constituent parts. If, for example, the sewage system needs to be repaired, in a situation of free association, there's no need to seek permission from some communal authority. People who are willing to...
They're explaining that if something needs to be done in the commune, you don't need to get permission from someone to go and do it. You just go fix the fucking problem. Okay? So for people who are asking, well, who oversees the thing? It's a dictatorship of the proletariat. The basic idea is that if the person in charge of the problem thinks there's a problem, they go and deal with the fucking problem. They're not going to some sort of boss. Boss, can I have permission to do X, Y, B, and Z to fix the problem? That would be a hierarchy. If they're just going and doing it, that is what they're talking about in terms of like a non-hierarchical, decentralized structure.
Association provides the best means to achieve flexible social forms that truly benefit their constituent parts. If, for example, the sewage system needs to be repaired, in a situation of free association, there's no need to seek permission from some communal authority. People who are willing to...
My Rumble chat wasn't moving. I'm so sorry. We got 2 gifted channel memberships on Rumble. We got a gifted channel membership from Ding Ding Ding. We got a gifted channel membership from Real Drew Morgan. W's to you guys. I apologize for not seeing it.
To take the necessary repairs, come together on that basis, evaluate what resources are available to accomplish their goals, and take action. Of course, if they wish to avoid upsetting the social equilibrium, it's in their best interest to consult with the people who might be affected by the repairs prior to action and find compromises where necessary. But this is not the same as submitting the activity to the decision of a collective body. Perhaps this process of consultation, problem solving, and conflict resolution.
Old sub, single-handedly funding that, well, not single-handedly, funding the Jim Jones documentary. Bro, 20 gifted channel memberships. W's to you, my friend. Big support. Appreciate it. Round of plague doctors in the chat for old sub, getting us over the 50% mark. So we will watch the Jim Jones documentary. Settle down, Pisces. Go get a snack or something. Come back in 20 minutes if you don't like it. Jeez.
Solution can be described as a consensus process in some cases, but of course not every effort to resolve conflicts or solve problems can be limited to the traditional process of consensus. Beyond that, some problems can only be solved.
If Big Tech gets a fucking channel membership, I'm gonna be so mad. Yeah, old sub mogging Big Tech, true. If Big Tech gets a is there any way to prevent me from like that I can prevent someone from getting a channel membership? That would be fucking awesome.
By disregarding consensus. Minorities don't need to find consensus with majorities for permission to retain their autonomy. Ultimately, anarchy is not and has never been about everybody voting for everything everywhere all at once to get anything done. In Worshiping Power, which I highly recommend, Galileu's challenges us to accept this more chaotic organization. Chaotic decision-making fosters the recognition that society can function spontaneously as a decentralized network, permits conflict as a healthy force in our lives, encourages a multiplicity of decision-making spaces pervading all moments of life, well beyond the formal, masculine sphere of the Congress or the diktat, and allows different, even conflicting decisions to be made at different points in the human network, while encouraging a collective consciousness so all decision-makers can
Guys, guess what? Breaking news. My favorite luxury bag show just came on Whatnot. How awesome is that?
Maximize their intelligence and accordingly harmonize. Humans have an evolutionarily tested ability to utilize chaotic decision-making at a macro scale. And the only people who dispute this are those who wish to permanently infantilize their compatriots so as to control them by monopolizing decision-making in unitary structures. Later on in the book, Galileu develops a necessary litmus test for anarchy. If the system that you create is so interchangeable with the existing order that you can take out the assembly, replace it with a tyrant, and the society keeps functioning, then you have failed to truly revolutionize the social fabric.
Real.
I don't think that we
So
should
real and true,
dismiss
Kristen.
consensus. I think we need to interrogate some of the assumptions
Bald is the lack of a hairstyle. So true. So true. So true.
that would see it become just another means of rule. If consensus stays tied to rigid polity forms, then though it will give us practice in egalitarian social relations, we can go much further still in our pursuit of freedom. As Gillis concludes in his piece, truly anarchist approaches to consensus would prioritize making the collectivity organic and ad hoc. This would mean adopting an unterrified attitude about dissolution and reformation, learning new habits and growing new muscles that have atrophied in the totalitarian reference frame of our status world. For consensus to be truly anarchistic, we must be willing to consent upon autonomy, to shed off our reactionary hunger for established, perpetual collective entities. This sentiment is echoed by CrimethInc, as in seeking to answer the question of our responsibilities to each other, they accept that we must create mutually fulfilling collectivities at each level of society.
Hey, listen, Otis, you can't take this shit personally. Normally, I think bald men can be attractive, except when they're being dicks on the internet. Just saying. And then we have to make fun of them. It's the rules of the internet.
Spaces in which people identify with each other, and of course do right by each other. At the same time, we must recognize that we will have to reconfigure them continuously according to how much intimacy and interdependence proves beneficial for the participants. When a configuration must change, this need not be a sign of failure. On the contrary, it shows that participants are not competing for hegemony. When exploring what it means to organize anarchy, we must both consider what the future that we are striving toward might look like, and understand what is required to accomplish those goals in the here and now. This is what is meant by means and ends. The two cannot be separated. I know that this discussion can all feel very vague, so let's look practically at how we can agitate for anarchy.
Good idea.
One of the proposals that CrimethInc advocates in place of a formal site of centralized decision-making are spaces of encounter, where people of diverse interests can find and connect with others of common concern in accordance with the principle of free association. These spaces of encounter might be created or found in libraries.
Okay, so this is like the bookstores. This is like that network of anarchist bookstores all over the country where they have education spaces, they have meeting spaces, stuff like that. They create spaces where people can get together and create like a social community around these ideas.
Community centers, cafes, maker spaces, common rooms.
So when I was in Madison, when I was in the autonomous zone in Madison, basically, I don't think I ever talked about this. I have video of it. I should probably show it at some point. There is a giant ass social justice community center with a big mural on the wall about revolution, literally right next to the autonomous zone. It's like a block and a half away. So when I was like walking with security, we basically walked around the entire perimeter of the autonomous zone. And then like we walked by this big community center. There's a literal like communist mural on the wall advocating for revolution. And this is a permanent community center that exists in that area. And when we were watching the Madison City Council, you guys remember when we were watching the Madison City Council meeting and they were having people do testimony from that community center? It was the same one. So is it a coincidence that an autonomous zone popped up literally right next to a giant social justice community center in the middle of the city? Probably not.
Schools, or even online. Spaces of encounter might also be developed along existing supply chains on the factory floor, in warehouses, in stores, on farms, or in offices, as part of a radical transformation of labor. All it takes to get the ball rolling is an opportunity, perhaps an initiating event, for folks to come together, start sharing their offers and needs, and experiment with solutions. On that foundation...
Thanks so much for the $5. Appreciate it. I'm sorry to pop some bubbles, but I shave my head too. That's okay, old sub. I'm not judging you. We only judge Pisces who are bald in the chat, okay? Everyone else is fine. I don't think you're a Pisces. Golf is the only other Pisces here that I know of. I don't have enough hair to make paying a barber worth it. Hey, bro, you got to do what you got to do. It's all good. As long as you're not a Pisces, that's all that matters.
The full potential for spaces of encounter can be built.
True.
CrimethInc points to the example of the space of encounter that preceded the demonstrations against the 2001 Free Trade Area of the Americas Summit in Quebec City. Rather than employing an organizational model intended to produce binding central unity that would have participants spending the entire night fruitlessly arguing about goals, strategy, and which tactics to allow, thousands of people in autonomous groups were able to pursue and synchronize their wide array of plans for action. CrimeThink concludes with the recognition that only when we understand ourselves as nodes within dynamic collectivities, rather than discrete entities possessed of static interests, can we make sense of the rapid metamorphoses that people undergo in the course of experiences like the Occupy movement, and the tremendous power of the encounter to transform us if we open ourselves to it. Finally, returning to the concept of federation as promised, we can look to Antimanes of Democracy, where Wilbur writes about how federative organization will be the process by which we
best sign, Aries, best sign, #1 sign of the zodiac. Just saying. Thanks, old sub. Appreciate it.
identify specific social selves as in interests or needs, and establish their involvement in large-scale collectivities that are formed on the basis of those convergent interests. He specifies that these collectivities will exist on a specifically consultative basis, quite literally to seek and disseminate information or advice as it relates to those interests, with the recognition, where relevant, of expertise. These consultative associations might be organized to collect and relay information related to everything from armed defense, to co-housing construction, to agroforestry. There might be consultative associations with a journalistic focus, and consultative associations with a rewilding focus. They may exist on any scale, depending on the specificity of the information needed, from as local as an apartment building to as far-reaching as a continent or even the entire globe. Consultative associations can create blueprints, document the available labor and expertise, source resources, and share feedback. Also, that
And yet you just keep coming back. You just keep coming back. Just saying.
Interested and affected individuals and groups can easily access everything they need to make informed decisions. Let me give an example to illustrate what this looks like in the context of anarchy. A group of builders might organize themselves upon identifying the need for more housing in their neighborhood, or might have that need brought to them in a space of encounter. Following the incentive to be as informed as possible to avoid unnecessary conflict, they will then need to access the information available in the consultative associations they are part of, including referencing any useful pre-existing blueprints, surveying the wants and needs of those seeking housing, identifying the current land, labor, and resource constraints, and identifying any concerns that the neighbors affected by such construction might have. Once they've gathered a satisfactory amount of information, gathered the necessary resources, and addressed any potentially obstructive concerns, they can proceed to build a house. Consultative associations will not exist as distinct and static entities separate from their constituents, but will no doubt overlap and diverge unrestrained by the firm or the polity form. This echoes Kropotkin's description of communes in an economic context.
Okay, so you guys understand what they just explained? They basically just explained that, like, if someone wants to go build housing, they can just go do it, but they also need to, like, consult with other people that might be involved in this to make sure that essentially everything goes well. So it's not like it won't be vetoed, but it's like you're expected to work within the collectivity of the community to make sure that whatever you're doing is not fucking up other people's shit. It's actually like a highly functional way of operating, honestly, but they also don't know how to, like, you know, grow food or anything, so it would still lead to mass starvation and death. Real Drew Morgan, $5 on Rumble. Really appreciate it, bro. This sheet is so important. Commies change and message language, and we need people like you. No one wants to hear it from my old ass. Yeah, I'm trying, bro. I'm trying. I appreciate the $5.
In words of a rebel, as he says that economic frontiers do not exist. The zones of production and exchange of various products interpenetrate each other, tangle with each other, impose themselves on each other.
Isn't Owen Schroyer a Cancer? Did we decide that was his sign?
Consultative associations can be formed here and now to connect existing projects and disseminate the lessons we learn from them, and to bring together the information and actors necessary to accomplish our various goals.
Owen is a Cancer.
How do these concepts fit into library economies? Great question. In case you haven't seen them, in 2022, I made a video on the commons and a video on library economies. I'll try to summarize them both here in the context of everything we have discussed so far. The commons are defined as a common pool resource, or CPR, which is a natural or man-made resource system that benefits a group of people, but provides diminished benefits to everyone if each individual pursues their own self-interest to the detriment of others. We must draw further distinction between the resource system and the resource units produced by that system. Resource systems include forests, lakes, fisheries, pastures, and even infrastructure like windmills and the internet, while resource units consist of whatever users appropriate from those resource systems, such as cubic meters of lumber harvested, tons of fish withdrawn and fodder grazed, kilowatts generated, and network bandwidth used. It's important to maintain the renewability of a resource system by ensuring that the average rate of withdrawal does not exceed the average rate of replenishment. The term appropriators refers to those in association who withdraw resource units from a resource system. Appropriators may use the resource units they withdraw, like residents powering their homes or farmers watering their crops, or they may transfer the resource units for others to use, such as a logger sending lumber to an association of builders. Producers are those in association who directly construct, repair, and sustain the resource system itself. In the organization of commons, producers and appropriators are often the same people. But when they aren't, in anarchy they would still be rather closely associated as a consequence of their mutual interdependence. Groups organized around CPRs will naturally develop norms that guide their behavior and maintain mutual responsibility to each other. In doing so, I believe they may benefit from the guidance of the principles that I've somewhat modified that were originally outlined by Eleanor Ostrom in Governing the Commons. Those are clearly defined boundaries where those involved have a clear sense of the exact structure and characteristics of the CPR, which is part of where a consultative association would provide benefit. Those associations would also serve to monitor the conditions and use of the CPR over time, disseminating information that would concern affected parties so that conflicts of varying tolerance can be resolved between individuals and groups, with no single static approach, but a variety of approaches adopted on a case-by-case basis. CPRs would also most likely give rise to spaces of encounter, where agreements about norms developed in compatibility with local conditions can be negotiated. The library economy, or library of everything as I've used it, is a rhetorical means of communicating the concept of the commons as a socialized and participatory organization of resources and distribution of goods and services. It is another way of conceptualizing a potential outcome of free association in anarchy. The library economy is based on three key principles.
The fucking library is central to the commune. The fucking library. Who could have possibly seen that coming?
Bookchin's work in the ecology of freedom, usufruct, the irreducible minimum, and complementarity. Usufruct as a pervasive norm refers to the freedom of individuals or groups to access and use, but not destroy, common resources to supply their needs. This is as opposed to the limitation of access based on exclusive ownership. Personal possessions may always be a thing, but capitalist property certainly should not. The irreducible minimum is the guaranteed provision of the means necessary to sustain life. It is the level of living that no one should ever fall below, regardless of the size of their individual contribution, including access to adequate food, water, shelter.
See, this is the type of retard comment I get every day. Excuse me, how can you say that Candace won? Hey, bro, guess what? I posted a whole video about why Candace won yesterday. Here's what you need to do, Billy. Here's what you need to do. You need to go watch the video I posted yesterday. It's 3 minutes long. It very clearly explains why Candace won. You can also watch the Kino Casino stream I did last night if you would like further information. But the information's all in the video, bro. So if you're half as smart as you think you are, just go watch the fucking video. It's really not that hard.
Clothing, education, and healthcare. Finally, as a library economy would require a vast reorientation of our principles from the centrality of capital and competition to the centrality of humanity and cooperation, the last core concept of a library economy is complementarity, which can now also be described as unrestrained mutual interdependence made manifest through collective force. Complementarity is a way of looking at non-hierarchical differences within a society as something generative, where each person of whatever skill or ability contributes a small part to an outcome greater than the sum of its parts. Furthermore, our approach to nature must similarly be based in complementarity. Rather than maintaining an antagonistic, dominating relationship with nature.
Thanks so much, Jonathan, for the 5 gifted channel memberships. W's to you, bro. Really appreciate it. Guys, we do have about, 10 minutes of this documentary left. At the end of this documentary, we're going to watch a Jim Jones documentary. So if you want to stick around for another 10 minutes or so, we are going to get through the rest of this video because we eat our vegetables. We are learning about the basic organizing principles that Antifa has that underlines their entire ideology. So this is deeply important that people understand this, but we will be watching a surprise Jim Jones documentary in like 10 to 15 minutes. So stick around.
We must strive to find a complementary melding of nature and society, which Bookchin called third nature. If that's piqued your curiosity, check out those videos I mentioned. Going further with the dissection of authority, the understanding of mutual interdependence, the principles of free association and federation, the critique of democracy, and reevaluation of consent.
Billy, if you say one more retard thing in my chat, I'm going to permanently ban you, okay? If you thought you'd won, you just say it. Billy, I literally did, you fucking low IQ midwit loser. I did say it. I said it in the video I posted yesterday that you obviously are aware of because you're whining about it. I also said it again on the Kino Casino stream last night. So, Billy, that's strike 2 for you. Oh no. Billy just got blocked on Facebook. Oh no, not smart enough to be here. Go away, goodbye.
Census, the practice and ideal of spaces of encounter and consultative associations, and the concept of the commons and the library economy in mind, we can now answer the question of how to pursue anarchy. In short, a social revolution that seeks to alter the whole character of society. But what does that mean? People typically envision some massive uprising in the future, akin to popular media's depictions of the French Revolution. But in reality, as anarchists use the term, social revolution refers to an ongoing and intentional transformation of our society, economy, culture, philosophy, technology, relationships, and politics. It is not starting from scratch, but rather utilizing the shell of the old to build a new, taking on a conscious engagement with current conditions, and using the means that are compatible with desired ends. That process might be punctuated with flashy moments where leaps and bounds may be achieved, but much of the real foundations of anarchy are established in the interludes between insurrections. It is not the single, momentous tsunami that shapes the coast, but rather the many small waves that erode the land with time. The process of social revolution involves acts of confrontation, such as occupation and expropriation, acts of non-cooperation, such as strikes and boycotts, and acts of prefiguration, such as establishing spaces of encounter, free schools, and alternative economies. If such efforts are effectively networked, they can grow large enough to practically counter the all-encompassing idea and experience of many that there is no alternative to capitalism and the state. I still recommend my video on the topic for a full explanation, with the obvious caveat that I would now challenge my consensus and democracy-limited depiction of popular assemblies and cooperatives as a misrepresentation or perhaps needless restriction of anarchy, which can be more accurately referred to as participatory in general, serving as spaces of popular discussion, activity, and consultation without legislation. The process of social revolution must also involve affinity groups, another term for groups formed on the basis of free association, utilizing the practice of social insertion, which is a specific term that describes the active involvement of anarchists in mass movements to influence their development in anti-authoritarian directions. By recognizing the interrelation of powers, drives, and consciousness, we can shape the direction of revolutionary change. Powers refers to your power to do something, not power over others. And such powers are continuously determined by both internal and external factors, like your ability to communicate with others or the social relations you're involved in. Drives encompass your conscious and unconscious goals and motivations, which are influenced by external factors and reciprocally affected by your powers. Finally, your consciousness allows reflection, deliberation, and the ability to direct and modify actions. Our consciousness is also contextual and impacts our powers and drives by aiding the development of tools and concepts that enable us to critique societal norms, understand social dynamics, envision alternative social organizations, and organize for change. The powers, drives, and consciousness that people develop are used to either maintain a given social system, change it, abolish it, or replace it altogether. If we want to create an anarchic society, then we need to develop people's ability to self-organize, which will drive them to seek out and develop horizontal forms of organization, which will shape their consciousness about hierarchy and empower them to resist domination, both here and in the future. The question of defending the revolutionary process often begins from a faulty understanding of what anarchist social revolution actually entails. People ask this question with the assumption of a situation akin to civil war. My first response is to clarify, as I just did, what anarchists actually mean by social revolution. Revolution is a constant process that aims to continuously unmake hierarchy, not a flip of the switch or just war on the streets. Only on that
unmake hierarchy means overthrow the government.
Foundational understanding can I answer the question of how anarchists might deal with authoritarian reaction. Quite simply, by the use of organized force. Neither force nor
No.
organization, as we established, are intrinsically tied to hierarchy. Social revolution would involve upending the ideology.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Isn't that interesting? Isn't that, you know what? This is why we always watch till the very end, no matter who's complaining in the chat. Oh, excuse me. You plan to use organized force to overthrow capitalism and implement communism? Oh, excuse me, anarchists, again, please. Because again, guys, they said earlier in the video, this is why definitions are important. They said earlier in the video, the use of violence or the use of force is not hierarchy. And they're going to use organized force to implement and maintain communism. They're saying it. Listen.
Hierarchy, not a flip of the switch or just war on the streets. Only on that foundational understanding can I answer the question of how anarchists might deal with authoritarian reaction. Quite simply, by the use of organized force.
When Antifa, let me put this in a different way. When the left wins and they overthrow capitalism, how do they plan to deal with counter-revolutionaries who don't want to be communists? This is what they're saying. They have this group of counter-revolutionaries that are opposing communism. The communists, the anarchists, the Antifa, they need to deal with the counter-revolutionaries. How are they going to do that? And keep in mind, in this scenario, we are the counter-revolutionaries, okay? If you oppose communism, you are a counter-revolutionary. So they're telling you, how are they going to deal with us in the future communist utopia? Listen.
This question with the assumption of a situation akin to civil war. My first response is to clarify, as I just did, what anarchists actually mean by social revolution. Revolution is a constant process that aims to continuously unmake hierarchy, not a flip of the switch or just war on the streets. Only on that foundational understanding can I answer the question of how anarchists might deal with authoritarian reaction. Quite simply, by the use of organized force. Neither force nor organization, as we established, are intrinsically tied to hierarchy. Social revolution would involve upending the ideology that reinforces hierarchical power, dismantling the institutions that facilitate that power, and defending against the reaction of authorities by people themselves. Self-emancipation is the goal. So building a resilient and liberatory alternative to the status quo will inevitably produce a group of people driven to jealously guard their own liberty. Once there's a genuine interest in pursuing and defending their freedom, people will choose to fight for themselves and their loved ones. They don't need to be commanded to do so by an authority that will only prove counter-revolutionary to their freedom. All that might be needed is a measure of coordination. As I described it earlier, this would just require that individuals, preferably with expertise, consult and facilitate communication between defensive groups that have a shared responsibility to each other and a shared commitment to success. Something I neglected to mention in my video on the state is an observation that
they're saying that when we need to deal with all these counter-revolutionaries through the use of force, it would benefit us to coordinate among all the Antifa cells to make sure that we all have the best tactics for dealing with these absurd counter-revolutionaries with violent force. So Rechip on Rumble says, how does BLM and Antifa? Okay, first of all, BLM and Antifa are not the same thing. They are not the same organization. They are not the same activists. So don't conflate them. Those are two different things. How do they organize to stalk and harass Americans? Yeah, bro, like that's kind of a dumb question if I'm being honest about it. This whole presentation is about how they're organizing. If you think their primary goal is to stalk and harass Americans, I would stop listening to whoever you're listening to be honest.
Loose made in worship and power, which is that colonizing states appointed leaders to the horizontal societies they were trying to absorb. Why? Because hierarchical societies are easier to control and more vulnerable to the conquest of more powerful hierarchies. If a stateless people have no hierarchies that a colonizing state can exploit, then state institutions will need to be provided. Otherwise, the colonizing state has very few possibilities to expand its control beyond attempted genocide or demanded tribute. An ungovernable people cannot be as easily conquered as a people already under the yoke of rule.
Oh, look at the
Part
BLM
of how we defend ourselves from authorities must involve refusing the seemingly pragmatic introduction of authority. Finally, in responding to the question of defense, We must recognize that just like capitalists don't do the work that produces their capital, authorities don't do the violence that defends their authority. They order others in the form of police, military, or private security to fight for them. Given that subordinates are the ones who bear the cost of protracted conflict, history shows rates of desertion and occasional mutinies that anarchists can potentially take advantage of. Ultimately, the pursuit of anarchy is an unending struggle that requires ongoing analysis and flexible adaptation to ever-changing conditions. There is no single prescription or plan set in stone. We need a diversity of strategies and experiments guided by anarchic principles to see success. I see many new anarchists fall into the trap of limiting their imagination to what has already existed. But it's important to keep in mind that Civil War Spain, Black Army Ukraine, and the Zapatistas are not the boundaries of anarchist possibilities. Historical attempts at anarchist or decolonial social revolutions, while making some significant strides, still fell short, had structural failings, and made strategic errors. In Anarchy Works, Gelderloos challenges us to think deeper about our history, raising questions about isolation, alliances, repression, collaboration, and impermanence. I recommend engaging with those questions and remembering that while it's good to look at what worked in the past, there's no need to limit ourselves to what worked in the past. We in the present must understand that anarchy is something we're striving toward that has yet to ever be achieved. Anarchy is unprecedented. That realization can feel damning to some, but I find it exciting and liberating. If we base our judgment of what is possible only on what we have observed, we are doomed to create nothing new. There was a time when what exists now could not have been conceived, when the divine right of kings seemed inescapable, and yet here we are. We exist at a time with access to more knowledge than ever about what humans are capable of. Something not existent today does not mean it cannot be created tomorrow. Failures of the past do not guarantee failures of the future. Perhaps the anarchist philosophy is obscure now, but that says nothing of its merit for what comes next. Perhaps anarchy can never be achieved, but anyone who favors concrete steps toward free association and against hierarchy is an ally of mine. As Malatesta said, the subject is not what.
That's basically the end of the video. We made it. We got the bit about violent force against counter-revolutionaries. I'm happy. I'm happy. You guys persevered. You guys made it to the 2-hour, 15-minute mark. You guys want to watch a Jim Jones documentary? And the reason this popped up is I've actually been thinking about doing a Jim Jones day on the channel, which I know sounds a little bit weird and perverse, but there's actually a 4-hour long Jim Jones documentary about the whole creation of the People's Temple and all that stuff, which was at its core a socialist commune that participated in an act of revolutionary suicide. Revolutionary suicide is actually a real thing on the far left. And so this is like when people light themselves on fire and things like that, except this was a lot bigger than that. So there is a Jim Jones documentary that came up right at the beginning. I thought we could watch it. You guys want to watch it? One in the chat if you want to watch the Jim Jones documentary now that we've suffered through the anarchist lecture. 2 in the chat if you think this sounds dumb. I think we deserve it. I think we deserve a little dessert. I think we deserve a little dystopian, cult, communist leader documentary. I think we've earned it. Guys, I would like to get up to over 100 channel memberships gifted today. If you want to help on the way towards that goal, we have 37 more to get there. I'm going to start the documentary, and then I have to go pee. So I'm going to start the documentary. I'm going to let it play, and I will be right back. This is already weird. Holy shit. Maybe I shouldn't go. No, I'm going to. I'll be right back.
Nobody joins a cult. Nobody joins something they think is going to hurt them. You join a religious organization, you join a political movement, and you join with people that you really like.
I think in everything that I tell you about Jim Jones, there's going to be a paradox. Having this vision to change the world, but having this whole undercurrent of dysfunction that was underneath that vision.
Some people see a great deal of God in my body. They see Christ in me, a hope of glory.
He said, if you see me as your friend, I'll be your friend. As you see me as your father, I'll be your father. He said, if you see me as your God, I'll be your God.
Jim Jones talked about going to the promised land. And then pretty soon we were seeing film footage of Jonestown.
Rice, black-eyed peas, Kool-Aid.
We all wanted to go. I wanted to go. People's Temple truly had the potential to be something big and powerful and great. And yet, for whatever reason, Jim took the other road.
Then left before the Jim Jones documentary.
On the night of the 17th, it was still a vibrant community. I would never have imagined that 24.
Hey, listen, can we just celebrate the fact that there wasn't like a violent confrontation? Because, you know, I mean, there was no yelling, there was no name calling, there was, you know, just playful. You know what? I think it's a W. I think it's a W. People in the chat weren't mean to him. Too mean. A little mean's fine. Weren't too mean, okay? We did it. We all handled it like adults.
Hours later, they would all be dead.
Die with a degree of dignity. Don't lay down with tears and agony. It's nothing to death. It's just stepping over into another plane. Don't be this way.
Yep. Didn't get a membership neither.
I vividly remember the first time that I met Jim Jones. My sister Karlyn had invited my parents and my younger sister and I to visit her in Potter Valley. We came, and there was this strange man in her house, and her husband wasn't there. Annie and I were sent out to go on a walk. When we came back, something had happened. Something terrible had happened, because everyone had red eyes except for Jim Jones.
Go tell Amalek. I don't know anything about that. Go tell Amalek. Well, go tweet at him to come back then. Just go post at him on Twitter. I promise he's looking.
We didn't really get the story until we were in the car going home. He was carrying on an adulterous relationship with my sister.
Oh!
And because his wife couldn't relate to him as a wife, that Karlyn had taken over that role. Everything was plausible, except in retrospect, the whole thing seems absolutely bizarre.
The first time I visited People's Temple, I drove at the urging of a friend and a co-worker to Redwood Valley.
We all got suited down, neck tied, everything, and we were sharp.
I just want it to be noted, and Amalek will appreciate this. Started in a church. This is what church gets you. Admission to a cult.
As soon as I walked in to the San Francisco Temple, I was home.
I was one of those kind of guys that I used drugs. I was an alcoholic. I drank alcohol and stuff like that. And all these people that were like my age, they were clean.
Before I came here, I was taking LSD, marijuana, every type of dope you can imagine. Without our pastor Jim Jones to teach me the right way, I would not be in college right now.
And for me, that was like, wow, man, I like it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It was an interracial group. The choir was interracial. And they used to sing this song, never heard a man speak like this man before. Never heard a man speak like this man before. All the days of my life, ever since I've been born, I never heard a man speak like this man before. After they sang one or two songs, the whole place was lit up.
The People's Temple services, they had life, they had soul, they had
good.
power.
Okay. Thanks, Fredo.
We were alive in those services.
I would be up jumping in the balcony and clapping my hands.
If you came in as a stranger and didn't know anything about the politics, you were thinking you were entering an old-time religion service.
By the time Jones did come out to do his speaking, the table had already been set.
I represent divine principle, total equality, a society where people own all things in common, where there is no rich or poor, where there are no races. Wherever there's people struggling for justice and righteousness, there I am, and there I am involved.
What he spoke about were things that were in our hearts. The government was not taking care of the people. There were too many poor people out there. There were poor children.
The world is like a human family. The little child may not be able to go and draw a paycheck, but the father guarantees the child care. The grandmother may not be able to work anymore, but the father and mother guarantees her the right to live.
Every single person felt that they had a purpose there and that they were exceptionally special. And that is how he brought so many young college kids in, so many older Black women in, so many people from diverse backgrounds who realized that there was something bigger than themselves that they needed to be involved in, and that Jim Jones offered that.
I went home, told Mom, you know what, this is the right church for me. It was the next week that I became a member of People's Temple.
The first Chaz. Yep, the first Chaz. True.
There's a little town in Indiana. The moment I think of it, a great deal of pain comes. As a child, I was undoubtedly one of the poor in the community. Never accepted. Born, as it were, on the wrong side of the tracks.
I grew up with Jimmy Jones. We started first grade together. My brothers used to go over to Jimmy's house and hung around his barn, which was where he played.
From the time I was 5 years old, I thought Jimmy was a really weird kid. There was something not quite right. He was obsessed with religion. He was obsessed with death.
My brothers came back with stories of him conducting funerals for small animals that had died.
A friend of mine told me that he saw Jimmy kill a cat with a knife. Well, having a funeral for it was a little strange. Killing the animal was very strange.
Jimmy's father did not work, did not have a job, and was a drunk. Jim's mother had to work in order to support the family.
And he was kind of left to his own devices. You know, kind of the kid who ran wild in the street, you know what I mean? Listen, he was in a dysfunctional family. We got a nice name for it now. But when you live in a dysfunctional family, you think it's normal.
Feeling as an outcast, I'd early developed a sensitivity for the problems of blacks. I brought the only black young man in the town home, and my dad said that he could not come in. And I said, then I shan't. And I did not see my dad for many years.
I'm a soldier.
In Lynn, Jim Jones looked for community and couldn't find community in Lynn as a town, which had a population of, 1,000 people. But he did find community in the Pentecostal church.
He saw that they were a surrogate home. He saw that the preachers were like father figures to their congregations, and that role represented power over the lives of your congregation.
Got to sit with 5 channel memberships. Thank you so much, my dear. W's to you. Appreciate you funding the stream tonight.
Jim Jones started out on the revival preaching circuit learning the ropes of being a preacher. And once he started doing that, it became clear that he could get a following.
The first time I met Jim Jones was Easter 1953. My mother-in-law, Edith Cardell, had a monkey and it hung itself. And she wanted to replace the monkey. So she looked in the Indianapolis Star. And in that Indianapolis Star was Jim Jones's ad that he had some monkeys to sell. So it was through that she met Jim Jones and came back saying that he'd invited her to church this next Sunday.
Oh, Father, in the name of the divine Son, in the name of the life-giving presence, speak in our hearts now.
It didn't make no difference what color you were. There was everybody welcome there in that church, and he made it very plain from the platform.
We had some people that disagreed with Jimmy that got up in the audience and said they disagreed with him. They did not like this integration part of this services. We did ask people to leave the church one night because of that.
I was the first Negro child adopted by a Caucasian family in the state of Indiana. Jim Marshland actually went to adopt a Caucasian child. The story goes that I was crying real loud, and it drew attention for Marshland to come over. And once she picked me up, I stopped crying. My family was a template of the Rainbow family. We had an African American.
Template of a rainbow family.
We had 2 American Asian, and we had his natural son, homemade.
Jim was breaking new ground in race relations at a time when the ground was still pretty hard against that. Jim Jones was hated and despised by some people, particularly in the white community.
There had been pressures on him to leave Indianapolis. He thought that Indianapolis was too racist of a place for him to be, and he wanted to take his people out.
California is perceived to be a very progressive state. This would be the place to implement the dream of racial equality, not Indianapolis, which seems hopeless, but California, which seems to be the promised land.
He chose Ukiah in Northern California, about 90 miles north of San Francisco, because there was an article in Esquire magazine that said that Ukiah was one of the 9 places in the world that in the event of thermonuclear attack, people would survive.
I told Edith, if you follow Jimmy to California, you're crazy. So what did Jimmy do but took her to a psychiatrist and sent me a certified letter that she is of sound mind and she is not crazy. I was there the afternoon that Edith drove away. I didn't know I'd never see her again.
The move to California was really fun. There were about 12, 15 cars driving across the United States and making that journey to a place none of us knew, none of us could even imagine. We were going to California, our new world.
When I saw Redwood Valley, I couldn't believe my eyes because it was like a paradise. It was rural, it was green, there were grapevines everywhere, and I fell in love. I said, this has got to be a perfect way to live.
Started with about 141 people, and from that we've grown to a very thriving congregation. We have about every level of society, all socioeconomic income strata, professional down to the ordinary field worker, field labor. Really, it's beautiful to see that all these divisions have been broken down, not only race, but any differences of economic position.
The focus of Jim's message was the taken from the Bible, where Jesus, in his earliest days, told people to sell all things and have all things in common.
Jesus Christ had the most revolutionary teaching.
So what the documentary is teaching us is that Jesus led Jim Jones to create a communist cult. Okay.
To be sad in the sense that he said to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, take in the stranger, minister to those, the widows and afflicted in their suffering. And we feel that no one really tried Christianity too effectively, or the Judeo-Christian tradition.
The membership increased substantially as he procured more and more Greyhound buses and fixed them up. And every summer he began this cross-country tour.
The purpose of the bus trips was to spread Jim's beliefs about socialism and the world and how we can live a better life and about an integrated lifestyle.
About socialism, you say. It was to spread Jim Jones's beliefs about socialism. You don't say.
But behind that, I think it was to gather more members for the temple.
I decided not to go to Vietnam, and I was just at the point of what am I going to do with myself. I heard Jim Jones was going to be coming to Philadelphia and coming to Benjamin Franklin High School. And I went Wednesday night and I listened to him, and I was impressed by how it was such an interracial group and people were really happy.
You got nothing to lose. Who else is going to stand, look you in the face and say, come and I'll give you a job. Come and I'll give you a home. Come and I'll give you a bed. So I got nothing but a pension. Don't leave your pension behind. Who else will tell you that? Who'll tell you I'll put you on that bus tomorrow?
I heard Jim Jones talking about equality among races, what it's like in living in California and in the Redwood Valley, the good works that they're doing, things that like I wanted to get involved with, but didn't even know where to make an entree. And all of a sudden the answer was there.
Is going to get on the Freedom Train in Philadelphia.
He was there for 3 evenings, and the third evening I went off in the bus and came to California.
Surely he's able to carry.
When I joined People's Temple in the spring of 1966, there were exactly 81 members. 5 years later, an extended family of 80 people had become an organization of thousands.
Yeah, Robert, I have no clue who that is, so I don't know. I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. I don't know who that is.
People's Temple really was a black church. It was led by a white minister, but in terms of the worship service, commitment to the social gospel, its membership, it functioned completely like a black church.
He talked black. He really understood it. He understood how it was to be treated differently. And that's from his roots coming out of Lynn.
When people heard Jim, they didn't look upon him as being a white preacher, you know. People didn't look at Jim as being white. He was not white. He was just their preacher.
You going to go to Texas with me when I have that campaign? I was just wondering whether I could go or not. I'm about to go. Why, of course you'll go. You went to Mexico with me.
As older people joined, it took a year or so, and he convinced the people that, you know, he was doing so much in the community. And so why not, rather than just tithe your 20%, why not sell your home? Give the money to the church. And that is what people began to do.
Now, in this church, what have we done in a short time? We have 4 senior citizen homes that are the most innovating, the most beautiful you want to see.
They had their own rooms. They had every need taken care of. They had their food provided. They were well looked after.
Now, my home is stone blocked and there's not a piece of new furniture in it, but our senior citizen homes, they're elegant. And that's beautiful.
They were giving their life's money and savings to the church, but in exchange, the church was agreeing to take care of them in a community, not just in a nursing home.
Surely he's
got to the point where there were so many duties in the temple that some people had to become full-time. So when you were full-time temple, you worked about 20 hours a day.
My week kind of ran like this. I'd work my regular job on Mondays, you know, from 8 to 5. Then I'd work on files. There were people
So this is basically what they had to do to maintain the commune.
who ran rest homes. There were animals to be taken care of. There were the publications. Everybody had a job. Wednesday night, we'd have a meeting in Redwood Valley, and I'd go to the meeting for till probably 10 or 10:30.
We turned our paychecks over every time we got paid. And then we got an allowance, $5 a week.
And Friday, I'd go to work, and I'd get off of work, and I'd hop on the bus or drive the bus to San Francisco.
If I had to go to the doctor, it was taken care of. If I had to go to the dentist, it was taken care of. If I needed clothes, that was taken care of.
And often on Saturday night, we'd have planning commission meetings till 2 or 3 in the morning.
We would always try to let each other know next day, well, how long did you sleep? Oh, I slept 2 hours. You only slept 2? Well, I slept an hour and a half.
And then Sunday, we'd have a Sunday morning service, and then around 1 o'clock, hop on the buses, drive up, drop people off in San Francisco, and drive up to Redwood Valley.
The longest I ever stayed awake was 6 days, and that's with no coffee, no nothing.
It changed over the years, but it was always busy.
Being in an environment where you're constantly up, you're constantly busy, and you're made to feel guilty if you take too many luxuries like sleeping, you tend to not really think for yourself. And I did allow Jones to think for me because I figured that he had the better plan. I gave my rights up to him, as many others did.
Edie? Are your fingers numb? In your right hand. Reach the fingers out that are bothering you. Now, is the pain gone?
There was a senior citizen, and we nicknamed her Power. He would have her to come up in the midst of one of his meetings, and she used to say, the man got power. The man got power, y'all. And the whole place would just go wild.
Take your glasses off. Let's just dare in our faith. Now, look at my face. I love you. The people love you. And most importantly, Christ loves you. What do you see? One finger. One finger.
One of the most incredible healings to me was this little old lady. And she was in a wheelchair.
No, I mean, the left doesn't cover Jim Jones specifically, but they do cover revolutionary suicide on occasion. Especially like anytime someone lights themselves on fire or something. That is actually something that they believe in. Not that they're advocating for people to do it, but like they believe in like the martyrdom of the people who commit revolutionary suicide, essentially. Not something they talk about often, but I have seen them talk about it for sure.
Sure. Jim said, darling, you know, today is your day. You're gonna get healed today. So we're gonna heal those legs of yours. You're gonna walk again. And the whole auditorium went totally crazy.
Come forth, my dear. Stand out. Take that step. Bless your heart. Take that step.
And she takes this real slow, shaky step. She said, I can feel it. He said, yes, I know you can feel it. Now take your other leg and do it. And it's another real slow, shaky step. And he says, now I want you to walk toward me.
Move forward. Move forward. Move forward, darling. You can do it.
And she starts taking forward steps. And pretty soon, she is walking. And she starts walking up one of the aisles. And pretty soon she's running.
Oh,
well, by this time, the whole congregation's running down these aisles with us. We're all just running around the aisles, just
Communism
whooping and
saved
hollering
us.
up a storm.
Praise Jesus.
Later, I found out that this person that I had seen healed and cried with was really one of the secretaries, made up to look crippled and blind.
Never shall forget what he's done for me. Oh, what he's done for me. Oh, what he's done for me. Oh, what he's done for me. I never shall forget what he's done for me.
For those people that hadn't grown up in the apostolic world, Jim would say, you know, I know this is different for you, but for people to come from extremely religious backgrounds so that I can bring them forward to the message that's so important for all of us today, and that is activism, then I need to speak on each person's level.
He said, a lot of you people, you Christian people come in, you're so hung up on this Bible. He said, this black book has held down black people for the last 200 years. He said, but I'm going to show you this has no power. So he leaned way back like a football player and he flung it. What? And when he flung it and let it go, the place got dead quiet. And he waited till it hit the floor. Pow! When it hit the floor, he stood and he looked back and forth. He said, now, did you see any lightning come from the sky and strike me dead?
You're going to help yourself or you'll get no help. There's only one hope of glory. That's within you. Nobody's going to come out of the sky. There's no heaven up there. You have to make heaven down here.
And he said, what you need to believe in is what you can see. He said, if you see me as your friend, I'll be your friend. As you see me as your father, I'll be your father, for those of you that don't have a father. He said, if you see me as your savior, I'll be your savior. He said, even so, if you see me as your God, I'll be your God.
Yet I never heard a man speak like this man before.
People lifted Jim to a level of adoration because many believed that he had healed them of cancer. Many believed that he had saved their son or daughter from an automobile accident. There were many reasons for many people to admire, love, excuse, overlook much of what Jim did.
I had been in the temple for just a few months. I was sent backstage in Los Angeles to get something for somebody. I don't remember what. And Jones happened to be coming out of his room and he said, hi, Tim, how are you doing? How's it going? How do you like everything so far? And, oh, I like it a lot. And, you know, it's really cool. I don't remember exactly. And he reached up and kind of patted the back of my neck and he said, I'll fuck you in the ass if you want. And I just kind of stammered, no, you know, no. And he said, well, you know, if you ever want that, that's okay. You know, just let me know and we'll do that.
Jim said that all of us were homosexuals.
What?
Everyone except he was the only hetero.
Everyone was queer. In Jim Jones's People Temple, everyone was queer. Wow. Except for him, apparently.
It's okay. You know, just let me know and we'll do that.
Jim said that all of us were homosexuals. Everyone except he was the only heterosexual on the planet.
Okay.
And that.
Okay. Yeah, zoinks. Yeah. Maria Callis fan, thanks so much for the super chat. I ended up inside a praise and worship team at the Charismatic Evangelical Church due to my music skills, and the things I heard turned me against it all. If only people could be half as wise as you, Maria. Thanks so much for the $5. I appreciate it.
The women were all lesbians and the guys were all gay. And so anyone that showed any interest in sex was just compensating.
What he explained to each of us and in sermons was that sexual relationships were very selfish and they took away from the focus of the church, and that was to help others. Jim was not celibate. Nobody knew that until perhaps it was their time to find out. What he spoke from the pulpit wasn't what he did behind the scenes.
I remember one night, one of the brothers had stood up and said, you know, I think everybody that wants Father to screw him in the butt, you need to take a enema first. I'm telling you the truth, man.
I suppose that's only polite if you're gonna get fucked in the ass. Okay, whatever. That's fucking gross. Okay, that's fucking gross. Okay, dad joke. Dad joke. Everyone ready for a dad joke? Thanks, MP. Appreciate it. Adam wakes up and finds Eve counting his ribs and asks, "What are you doing?" Eve said, "I want to make sure there's no other woman in your life." Thanks, MP. You rock. Appreciate it.
I'm telling you the truth. And then the question went on, well, how many of you in here have had him to do that? And whether they were lying or just following suit, hands of the men just went up around the room.
What?
And I'm sitting there petrified because I'm like, is this what it's leading to that I'm supposed to get to? And I'm thinking, But I played it off like, okay, I'm being cool. Okay, if that's where they at, that's not where I'm at. Because I'm thinking, my wife, I'm happy with my wife. You know, what I'm concerned with her, with this sleep I'm not getting enough anyway.
One of the powerful things that Jim used to keep us to not think was that we were never really allowed to speak with one another. I'd look around and I'd say,
You're new here. Thanks for being a member of the channel for 13 months for someone who's new. We're watching a Jim Jones documentary, MP. Appreciate it.
The one that feels this way.
Yeah, well, thank God Big Tech at least missed the fucking in the ass discussion and the enema discussion. That's probably for the best if we're being honest about it.
I learned eventually not to say anything to anyone.
We had a lady who visited us a week ago here and was speaking to one at the door, and she was a member of a prominent church, a pastor's wife. And she said, I think that the poor should be made to control how many children they bring into the earth. You remember? Some leading scientists say we have to have euthanasia. Oh, no. Oh, no. Who's going to decide who and when a person's going to die? We must never allow that, because this is the kind of thing that ushers in the terror of a Hitler's Germany. We must not allow these kind of things to enter our consciousness.
My father used to tell me that people's lives, 60% of people's lives were made on emotional decisions. Make your decisions, 60% of your decisions based on logic, fact, and reason. And allow emotion to be the secondary motivator. And we were Star Trek fans. He and I were Star Trek fans. And he used to always say, just vulcanize yourself. Just vulcanize yourself.
We were celebrating New Year's Eve. There were about 120 people.
Jim started talking about our cause. And he said, this punch is going to be passed out to everybody here. We all drank our punch. And then he said, you just drank poison. And we will all die right here in the church together as one. The women were just screaming, oh no, my baby, my baby. And others just sat there. And all of a sudden, Jim says, that wasn't poison you drank.
Jim said that this was a test of loyalty. He just wanted to see if we were truly committed to our cause, and that was how we would show it.
Well, it wasn't about our loyalty, because we were demonstrating loyalty all the time. Coming there, being there in the meetings, sitting, listening, supporting, working. And I thought it had a lot more to do with Jim's sense of rehearsal. Did he feel like he was potent and omnipotent enough to really get people to kill themselves when he said so. And that frightened the hell out of me.
Jim Jones, I think, realized that ultimately Ukiah was not the sort of climate where People's Temple would thrive. He wasn't going to be gaining large numbers of members. He couldn't declare himself to be a socialist god openly, certainly in a city like Ukiah.
So he had to go to
in San Francisco.
to declare himself a
Jones
socialist
walked
god.
in on
I
a
love
sort
it.
of a wild kind of party where there was a lot of new faces and new sources of power.
Yeah,
and there was a sort of feeling that
god.
smaller groups, neighborhood groups, activist groups had a bigger chance.
I think the early 60s had been a time of great optimism. There was a belief that we could change the world through social movements. With various
socialism?
assassinations of Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, there was definitely a feeling of hopelessness. The message of People's Temple was, no, the dream is alive.
If you had a demonstration in San Francisco and you wanted people to show up, Jim Jones, the People's Temple, could be there in 20 minutes with hundreds of people, and we would be enthusiastic. There was an attitude of, we can change the world, and that's what we wanted to do.
This is like a
These people would
communist
be on
cult.
time.
This is how it works.
They'd be polite and nice. They were a span of ages, a span of races.
They were
tailor-made for a political rally. To a politician, it was like a birthday cake times 12.
You've managed to make the many persons associated with People's Temple part of a family. If you're in need of health care, you get health care. If you're in need of legal assistance of some sort, you get that. If you're in need of transportation, you get that. And that's the kind of religious thing that I'm excited about and have some respect for.
When vice presidential candidate Walter Mondale came to San Francisco, Jim Jones was part of the entourage that boarded his private jet. When Rosalind Carter came to San Francisco, she gave Jim Jones a private audience. Jim Jones had political power that few people, let alone preachers, could have imagined.
Jim Jones represented the People's Temple as a progressive movement that was threatened, that there were outside forces who didn't want us to do what we were doing, and it was the government. The government was infiltrating and wiretapping and trying to kill people or assassinate people. That's what was happening.
He was always paranoid that someone was going to get in and try to kill him. That they had two people that had dedicated their lives that they were going to jump in front of Jones and take the bullet, kind of like the Secret Service, so to speak.
Jim started changing a lot in the 70s. He was taking drugs. I think he said it was his kidneys at the time. And he was getting more and more paranoid. Incredibly paranoid.
There was always threats, always threats. They were there. They were just about to try to destroy us if we weren't always vigilant about our movement. There was a fire in the San Francisco temple. The temple was burned down and had to be rebuilt. The fire proved they are out to get us. They so don't want us to do what we're doing. They've burned down the temple. They'll do anything to keep us from doing what we're doing. So we have to be even stronger.
What about the fact that the Ku Klux Klan has increased 100 times in its membership?
Hey, thanks so much for the gifted channel membership. W's to you. Really appreciate it. Look at that. 69. 69. Nice, bro. Nice. Well done. 69 memberships. We hit 31 more to the goal. That'd be rad.
Well, not Mississippi. I'm talking about New York State.
Yo,
It's
another
the
one.
church's duty to have a
W's
place
made
of
the list.
protection
Thank
for its
you.
people.
Appreciate it. Nice
December
even
of
number.
75, 90 of us went by plane into Guyana and saw where we were building the community there.
See, they've made progress on the road and leveled it, the clear end of
Yo, we having a channel membership run. We got Malcolm in with 5. Thank you, good sir. W's to you. Appreciate all your support. We got Red Menace Guru with another one. Thank you so much for it. Appreciate it, bro. Up to 76
miles that you're seeing in the distance. Housing complexes that are being built.
What I saw decoration as
Yo,
being
Dan.
was building a
Dan in with another 5. Yo, you guys are hooking me up. I appreciate it. Dan, W's to you, good sir. Thank you so much for the 5 gifted channel memberships. You rock.
city where we could move and raise our children outside of the oppression and the racism of the United States of America.
When I first went into Jonestown, it was just a footpath.
So Jonestown was a place that the communists could raise their children outside of the racism and oppression of America. Does that sound familiar to anyone?
In the rainforest. We had Indians in front of us with machetes, and we had Indians behind us with machetes.
Yep, exactly, Hans.
300 miles into the jungle. We literally built a city in the middle of the jungle, in the middle of nowhere.
Hello, family. It's such a joy and great pleasure being here because of Father's love. We are trying to make, and we are making a place of refuge for all of you here. There's nothing at all that I have any holdings there. I do not want to go back in any way, shape, or form to the States. I love it here, and this is the place where all of you are going to be.
Pretty soon we were seeing film footage of the first crew that went down there. We all wanted to go. I wanted to go. It looked like freedom.
Everyone, we're a happy family, yes we are.
Now will each of you give a very fond embrace, a salutary kiss of greeting to your neighbor, and let's fill this atmosphere with warmth and love.
We thought of ourselves as one big family that did handle our own discipline. I was in a lot of the meetings where people were spanked or beaten, and I was slapped once also in a public meeting.
People were brought up front and they had to tell who they'd slept with and who they had sneaked off to a restaurant with.
It wasn't a week that went by that I wasn't called up on the floor because of my behavior, because of my attitude. Stanley Clayton, up front center.
He would ask people, what do you think we ought to do with them? You think you ought to get a good boxing? And then you'd get a resounding roar. Yes.
You might fight 5 people in one night. Well, you know, you're very tired. I've seen situations where they actually knocked the person out and actually took water and threw the water back on, woke him up and woke him some more.
I had welts really bad. And when I went to work the next day, one of my employees noticed the welts when I sat down, and I just broke down and told her. She didn't even know I was People's Temple. And she called the manager of the station up, and they talked to me about leaving. I couldn't say goodbye to my son and my husband because at that point it was like the Gestapo. The families were turning in each other. If I had said goodbye, one of them would have reported me.
It's kind of like when you get married and you have this ideal and you're in love, and then, the honeymoon wears off and reality sets in. And most people, once the going gets rough, don't jump out immediately.
In one planning commission meeting, Jim was getting notes, kind of love notes from one of the members on the planning commission.
Jones is sitting there calmly. And so another lady said, well, I don't know why you keep doing that. What makes you think you got something that he wants anyway? And so another woman says, well, you know what? You ought to just take off your clothes and show them what you got. You ain't got nothing. And so by this time, they look back to Jones. And so he looks up his glasses and he nods with approval. Yeah, that's a good idea.
She was to be totally naked, and she was down to nothing but her skin. Not even any shoes on, no bra, no panties, no nothing.
Then they begin to say what her breasts look like, her stomach, butt, vagina, you name it. Everything they could think of, they were saying. By this time, her face is red. Her body's almost red from embarrassment. And I noticed something. Jones was sitting, looking over his sunglasses, but he had a smile on his face, like he's really enjoying this woman being torn down.
I have a conscious memory of sitting there thinking to myself, this is wrong. And I didn't do a damn thing to stand up and say, this is wrong.
It's like a child in a dysfunctional family. On a certain level, it's normal, I just kind of took everything in stride.
But then we felt like we had gotten involved and gotten in so deep that it was actually no way out.
I traveled on bus 7, which was Jim's bus. And he sat down next to me. And I was sitting there and I thought, that's weird. It smells like alcohol next to me.
How odd.
And he leaned over and he said, do you know what you do to me? He had informed me that I was to come in, and on bus 7 there was a room in the back, which was like for just him. He had books, he had a desk, he had a bed. When everyone got off the bus at the rest stop, I went into his little room and I sat there and waited for him.
All right.
And finally, he opened the door, and without any talk or anything, he just pulled down his pants and had sex with me. And as I lay there, frightened, not sure what to do, and as I shivered, he'd say to me, this is for you. I'm doing this for you, Debbie.
Yeah, he's doing it for her, all right.
Well, in 1975, there was a mayoral election in San Francisco. A conservative candidate and a liberal candidate, George Moscone.
How you doing, all right?
Jones had several hundred people who would go door to door election day. Instead of a group that might give you 20 or 30 of these people, or 100, you had 300 or 400.
God bless you for being here, and let's go on and win.
The Moscone election was very close. The margin of victory was probably no more than 4,000. So you had to credit a big chunk of decisive votes to People's Temple.
The reward for the election of George Moscone was the appointment of Jim Jones as chairman of the City Housing Authority.
What was once a really boring meeting all of a sudden became like really interesting when Jim Jones became the head of it, because we all came down on the buses and we were instructed that when Jim came in, we stood, and when he left or spoke, we'd stand and clap.
The sheer staginess, the controlled atmosphere that sort of enclosed this guy made him so unusual, so different than the norm, that it made me very curious. My biggest problem was getting somebody to sort of talk to me about the church in kind of conversational terms.
I had become friends with some of the various defectors, and one of the defectors told me that she was going to speak publicly about Jones. And I said to her, I said, well, if you're going to speak publicly, I'm going to speak with you. I'm not going to let you do this alone.
I finally heard from some ex-members who heard I was interested in writing a story about the temple for New West magazine. And they took a chance. They called me, and some of them said, you know, you don't know nothing about the church. Wait till I tell you what I went through.
Before the article was going to break, Jim convinced the publisher that she needed to read it to him. He was on one phone and I was on taping the other end
Okay,
of
we got a Rumble rant from Tiffanel. Thank you so much, Tiffanel. Karlyn, housing authorities sounds familiar to the tenant associations that the communists are using. Yeah, great point. Tenant associations are almost always run by the far left. I hadn't actually thought about that. Good point, Tiffanel. Thanks for the Rumble rant.
why somebody else listened on another one. Jim didn't understand that there was no way he could talk her down from whatever this article was going to say. And as she continues to read this article, he's looking around the room at about 5 of us, and you could tell that he's becoming more and more anxious, and his mouth becomes drier and drier. And he realizes that this article is going to be hugely damning. And it was midway through it, he mouths to all of us in the room, "We're leaving tonight." They flew out to Guyana 6 hours before that article was going to hit.
When Jim Jones decided that there was too much pressure, too much trouble to stay in San Francisco, he ordered the move to Jonestown, and it happened almost overnight. People were being taken to airports. There were people who were packing their belongings and leaving their homes with virtually no explanation to their family members as to where they were going or why they were going. Fred Lewis came home and found that his wife had taken their 7 children and gone to Guyana, along with all their possessions.
My wife had gone over 3 months prior. I was waiting on pins and needles, and I was talking to her probably twice a week on the ham radio. And Leona Collier came up and said, "Okay, Eugene, it's your time. You're going over it." Coming into Jonestown, and we see a guard at the front gate, and you're all excited, and you're going down this road. The trailer comes to a stop, and then you can see the wooden pathway that leads to the pavilion. And you want to run, but you're just trying, I'm gonna be cool. And just as you reach the edge of the pavilion, people started rushing you that you knew, my wife is there. Haven't seen my mother in over a year or so. And I'm just hugging people, and it's like I've arrived, and everything's gonna be okay now.
I've never been so totally happy or fulfilled in my life. I can't begin to describe it. You could sit here and talk all day long and no words could describe the peace, the beauty, the sense of accomplishment and responsibility and camaraderie that's here. It's overwhelming. It really is. You can't describe it.
It's just such an exciting time. Everything was new and unique and just fun. We just had fun with it as it grew. I just love that we created what we ate, that we did all these jobs.
What do you think about your friends back down in the state? Do you think they should be here?
Well,
do you want to share with them this morning? Speak up.
I wish I could.
Well, can you do
share
it?
with them?
Would you do it?
They won't listen to me.
They won't listen to you, huh?
When you don't have anything, you own Jonestown. You are part of Jonestown. You were a shareholder at Jonestown if you were African American.
You will own nothing and you will be happy. Everything belongs to
It gave
everyone.
them the opportunity to really be a part of creating a utopia.
Tell me why, tell me why, tell me why.
Yo, communist,
why can't we live together? Tell me why. Why can't we live together? Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
Hey, thanks redundancy. WSU, appreciate it.
I think that Jim Jones took his group down there because he was afraid to face the publicity and answer the questions here in this country. I don't think that he feels confident having people talk to their relatives. I think the only way he can survive and sustain what he started is to isolate all his followers from this country and from their families.
The concerned relatives were the ex-members who wanted other family members still in the church to know they could leave. They wanted them to feel that there was an outside world, that Jones was wrong about telling people they could never leave the church and that they'd be treated badly in the real world.
The concerned relatives prompted FCC investigation of People's Temple. They organized letter writing campaigns to public officials, to members of Congress. They were incredibly effective in mobilizing government and media interest in People's Temple.
He was talking integration, he was talking helping people, he was talking better this and better that.
What about now? What's your impression now?
No, not really.
My impression now that those are fronts for him, I think he's gone crazy.
When Jim Jones wasn't there, things tended to be a little bit lighter. You know, people would be dancing or singing. There'd be music in different cottages. But when Jones was present, it was very, very dark. It was almost like a dark cloud.
In Jonestown, there was a speaker system, and only Jim spoke on it. And it went 24 hours a day, and he would tape himself. So in the middle of the night, all through the night, his voice was talking to you.
The United States is calling for the removal of all blacks and Indians. So is England, and want to have their immigrant black Indian population.
When was the United States calling for the removal of all blacks and Indians? When did that happen?
Removed in 6 months.
We had no other radio or TV or communication with parents or any kind of, update that could show us really that there's a whole other thing going on besides what Jim was interpreting for us.
I make my stand clear. Give us our liberty or give us our death.
No matter where you were, you could hear. You could hear it in your bunk at night. You could hear it when you're in the outhouse. You could hear it when you were working in the field. You could hear it all the time.
At least on those terms, we choose our death, and no one chooses it for us. Don't try to take any of our children.
There was this pervasive sense of being under attack in Jonestown. He told them that things were just getting worse in the United States. They couldn't go back home. And not only that, but these forces were traveling to Guyana to destroy them there.
You can't know how much conspiracy there is in this. Maybe it's economics. Who knows what it is? I'm not even certain. But I do know it's obvious that Martin Luther King was murdered by conspiracy. Malcolm X.
Over the summer of 1978, all of us noticed that Jim seemed to be getting sicker. His harangues over the loudspeaker were getting more and more frantic and really just sounding more and more insane.
He had gotten to the place that even his voice was becoming slurred. Yeah, he said
exactly. Thank you very much, Guru. I agree. This is purely satirical, obviously.
But yet still, every day, it was getting worse and worse.
Every night at some point, his voice would come over the loudspeaker and he'd say, I'm sending somebody out tonight. Somebody you know, somebody you trust. And they're going to act like they want to leave. But this is a loyalty test, and you need to turn them in.
A father would turn in a son, a husband would turn in a wife, a small child would turn in a parent. There was no freedom to express to one another what was going on because everything was suspect. The most forbidden thing to express was to leave.
He had a real issue with separation. People could not leave him. He took it as a betrayal to the cause and to him personally.
He said, I really want to get away from him. By Christmas, I will be gone.
By Christmas, do you want to be gone?
Yeah, well,
By Christmas, do you want to be gone? By Christmas, do you want to be gone?
I would ask you, could I go home and make a trip to see my people?
I have the power to send you home by Christmas, but it's not on Trans World Airlines. It's blasphemy. It's blasphemy to talk about going back when you have not been given any approval. Do you want to go home?
No.
Well, then be seated and shut your mouth and don't be in my face anymore.
Congressman Ryan was unique in the political sphere. He had this hands-on approach to legislating. He just didn't take no for an answer. So when he was in the state assembly, he went to Folsom State Prison and spent a week as an inmate to understand the prison issues and prison reform. He became concerned because a number of residents in San Mateo County had become members of the People's Temple, and family members started contacting him, concerned about their whereabouts and concerned about whether or not they were being held against their will. The word we were getting was that there was an armed encampment.
An encampment, you say?
It
An
was
armed
enough
encampment, you say?
for the congressman to say, you know what, I want to go find out for myself.
They called it an encampment.
There was a lot of preparation for Congressman Ryan's visit. There was all these different scenarios that were presented. He wasn't going to let him in. He was going to let him in. We were going to wait for them to come in, and we were going to kill them all when they came in.
I was very fearful about making the trip. I had a copy of the congressman's will and placed it in a particular drawer in my desk, just in case.
We flew in sometimes in the afternoon, about 6 p.m. We saw this beautiful signs, welcome to Jonestown.
As we approached Jonestown, it was Spartan, but very impressive.
How could you not be impressed that out of the jungles of Guyana, they had carved out a community? They had crops growing, they had cabins, they had a little medical clinic, a little daycare area.
Flour, rice, black-eyed peas, more peas. They have different containers around the place. Couldn't go through all the tremendous inventory they built up. Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid.
When Brian came, he came on a Friday night, and we put on a reception for him.
The songs that we sang that night, it was people saying, this is who we are and this is what we're about.
It was a vibrant community. I would never have imagined that 24 hours later, those people would be dead.
Everything up to that point was good. Everybody was thrilled that Ryan was thrilled. He just kind of praised us.
I think that all of you know that I'm here to find out more about questions that have been raised about your operation here. But I can tell you right now that from the few conversations I've had with some of the folks here already this evening, that whatever the comments are, there are some people here who believe that this is the best thing that ever happened in their whole life.
that response to him was spontaneous. It was loud. It was emotional. What I was feeling was
it's like those accounts on Instagram that like post the last photo before someone dies, or like they post just like creepy dark stuff that's meant to disturb you. It's the same thing. You're right about that.
an opportunity that I can vocalize how much I believe in what we are doing here. The reporter next to me said, "I've never felt anything like this before." And I said, "Because you haven't felt anything like this before." I actually felt pretty good overall. This went probably as well as it possibly could go so far.
Hey, thanks so much, John. Appreciate the channel membership. W's to you, good sir.
When Congressman Ryan came, I wanted to pass him a note and said, "Help us get out of Jonestown." When one of the reporters was walking around towards the edge of the pavilion, I stuck the note in the fold of his arm and it fell to the ground. And so I picked up the note and I gave it back to him. I said, "You dropped something." And this little boy, about 9 years old, started saying, "He passed a note, he passed a note."
Don Harris, who was the NBC reporter, came up to me and Congressman Ryan and handed us these two notes from people that wanted to leave. So at that point, we knew that something was very, very wrong.
Dun, dun, dun.
I was like the first to rise up the following morning. It was a bright, sunny day, but it was a dark day. It just didn't feel right.
We were there supposed to interview some of the family member to ask them why they cannot leave.
Are you happy here?
Oh, I should say I am. I've never been any happier in my life.
You want to stay?
Definitely. I certainly do.
Some people have said they couldn't leave if they wanted to. Do you think you could?
Yeah, if I really wanted to, I'm free to go. If I really wanted to, I'd be able to free to go. Well, I believe it. I've been here a few days, and I have absolutely no complaints at all. It is really nice here. It is really nice, and I'll be leaving in a couple of weeks, and they could come with me, but they said they didn't want to come.
Literally out of nowhere.
I did open the picture. No, I actually did it. I couldn't get it fucking open. I couldn't get it open, so I gave it to Victor, and Victor opened it. Victor was standing here asking me for something.
The sky turned black, the wind came up, and it just torrential rain. But what I personally felt was that evil itself blew into Jonestown.
Victor got it open. Yeah, he did. W Victor, W husband.
It was about 11:30 in the morning. Edith Parks walked up to Jackie Spear and said, "I'm being held prisoner here. I want to go home."
Now, do I both understand you to say that you both want to leave Jonestown on this date, November 18th, 1978?
Yeah. Immediately, the whole vibe changed. I mean, reporters said, "We got our story. You know, the story here is happening right now."
Jim Jones came to talk to me. And the first thing he said was,
"Hey, we got a Rumble rant from Tiffanel on Rumble. This got me interested in looking up communes. Karlyn, have you studied Hurrites? Grok thinks they, I don't know. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to take a picture of that. I'm going to look into it later. Thanks so much for the super chat. Appreciate it."
"Don't say anything to the reporters. They're all liars." The last words I heard from Jim Jones was, "I just want you to know that you can come back to Jonestown and visit your son anytime you want."
Last night, someone came and passed me this note.
Right.
He's the one that I'm just talking about. Yeah, this is the man that wants to leave his son here.
Doesn't it concern you, though, that this man, for whatever reason, one of the people in your group
People play games, friend. They lie. What can I do about liars? Are you people going to leave us? I just beg you, please leave us. We will bother nobody. Anybody wants to get out of here can get out of here. We have no problem by getting out of here. They come and go all the time. I don't know what kind of game. People like publicity. Some people do. I don't. But some people like publicity. But if it's so damn bad, why is he leaving his son here? Can you give me a good reason for that?
When word got out that people were leaving, all hell broke out.
You bring those kids back here! Hold on a second. You bring them back! One second. Don't you touch my kids!
More people wanted to leave. And then Jim Jones started to make pleas to people saying, you can't leave. You're my people. Why do you want to leave? It was an emotional roller coaster for everyone there.
Don't you touch my kids! Wait.
Jones was in the pavilion. At one point, he said, well, of course you can go if you want. But clearly that was not the message. The message was, you are betraying me.
Mm-hmm.
I went and I spoke to the congressman in the pavilion. I told him, you are in extreme danger. You need to leave. And he said, you don't have anything to worry about. He says, you have the Congressional Shield of Protection around you. And I just looked at him like he was totally insane.
Congressman Ryan is directly across from me, and I saw this Temple member walk up behind him, and he was actually crying and shaking. And all of a sudden, he pulled out this knife and said, all right, motherfucker, you're gonna die. We all jumped on him, and there were just screams of horror everywhere.
We heard this great uproar in the pavilion, and the truck stopped. Shortly thereafter, Congressman Ryan starts walking out in this blood-stained shirt.
Those of us in the news media viewed Congressman Ryan as a form of protection, a shield of the United States. What happened there in those few moments made it clear that nobody was safe.
I went back to my cottage. All I wanted to do was see my wife and my son. Gloria and I were laid down on the cot, and we just held each other. And I said, I think we may all die. And she said, she kind of looked at me, and then she looked down at our son, who was playing on the floor with the toy, and she said, you're scaring him. I had literally opened my mouth to say, we need to leave, when there was an announcement on the loudspeaker, everybody report to the pavilion for a meeting.
We drove back to the airstrip, Port Katoomba. All of a sudden, we saw a dump truck from far away arriving to this airstrip. We realized these people catch up from people from Jim Jones. They're very close lieutenant to Jim Jones. These three guys, they get off the truck, walk around this area as though they were looking for somebody. They looked in people's faces. They stared at us for a little bit, but they didn't say one word, didn't ask anything. Right away, they walked back to the truck. They drove this truck all the way across the airstrip and stopped on this side of the plane. So literally, they cut us off from the jungle. We never know there's people hidden inside the dump truck. The moment they stopped shooting right away. Everybody ran towards the plane, on this side of the plane. They tried to hide underneath the wheels.
Then the congressman ran under the plane, and I sort of followed suit and got behind one of the tires.
All you can hear is a gun pop, pop, pop goes off constantly. We lie flat on the tarmac at that moment. But shortly afterwards, I heard my partner, the cameraman, He yelled, "Oh shit!" He said he got shot. He was sitting up.
There were people tumbling and yelling and letting out cries as they were hit. I was hit in my arm and wrist.
I felt a tremendous explosion right next to my head. I got a tremendous pain ran through my arm and on my shoulder. I was literally shaking, but I didn't move. I took the pain and hold still.
I was lying on my side, pretending that I was dead, with my head down, and they came and shot me at point blank range. I remember someone coming to me and telling me that Congressman Ryan was dead, but I was at a point where I didn't know how much more time I was going to be alive.
The gun's dead, and all you can hear is one engine was still running. So all you can hear the engine noise. And that's it.
Wild.
We walked up to the pavilion together with everybody else. It was very quiet. It was very somber. It was very sad, but it wasn't a death march.
The Congressman's dead. You think they're going to allow us to get by with this? Must be insane. They'll torture some of our children here. They'll torture our people. They'll torture our seniors. We cannot have this.
He said, well, we got to go. We got to get out of here. We got to go to sleep. Get the solution together.
If we can't live in peace, then let's die in peace.
Maria Katsaris walked up to him and whispered in his ear, and he looked at her and said, is there any way to make it taste less bitter? And she said, no, apparently not. And he said, is it quick? And she said, yeah, it's supposed to be quick.
Anyone that has any dissenting opinion, please speak. When we destroy ourselves, we're defeated. We let them, the enemy, defeat us.
On the last day of Jonestown, Christine Miller stood up and said, I don't want to die here. Why are we going to throw all this away? We've worked too hard.
I look at all the babies and I think they deserve to live. I agree. You know? But also they deserve much more than deserve peace. We all came here for peace. Is it too late for Russia?
She's calling Jim Jones on some of the things that he has promised them that they were going to do. Jim had promised that as an alternative to them dying in Jonestown, that they could go to the Soviet Union.
I'm listening to you. You asked me about Russia. I might not making a call to Russia. What more do you suggest?
Eventually, the rhetoric ratchets up enough that she is shouted down.
Christine, your life has been extended to the day that you're standing there because of him.
It's when I noticed that there were armed guards that kind of taking positions up around the pavilion. I'm thinking, where did all these fucking guns come from?
Jones came down off the podium and he said, hey, we got to do this. We got to go. That if we don't go this way, we're going to go like this. And they were coming, taking like newborn babies out of the mother's arms.
Mother, please. Mother, please. Don't do this. Don't do this. Put down your life with this guy, but don't do this.
There was a young kid, his name was Thurman. When he came inside, he bumped into me. At that same time, he's falling to the ground and he's going into convulsion.
Hurry, my children, hurry. All I say is stop falling in the hands of the enemy. Hurry, my children. Hurry.
I grabbed the kid from the shoulders up. In that process of taking him out of the pavilion, this kid died in my arms. I just felt the life go out of him. to me, at that point, I knew that this shit was real.
Die with respect, die with a degree of dignity. It's nothing to death, it's just stepping over into another plane. Don't be this way.
I ain't never used the term suicide, and I'm not gonna never use the term suicide. That man was killing us.
As I walked up to the back of the pavilion, I saw a woman named Rosie on the ground, crying, holding her dead baby. There were maybe 8 or 9 other people who were dying or in the process of dying. Inside, I just wanted things to stop. Please, just let me catch my breath. Let me figure out what's happening here. I looked to my right, and I saw my wife with our son in her arms and poison being injected into his mouth.
Wow.
My son was dead and he was frothing at the mouth. You know, cyanide makes people froth at the mouth. My wife died in my arms, and my dead baby son was in her arms, and I held her and said, I love you, because that's all I could say. It was like, she died in my arms, man.
Quickly. Where's the vat? Right here, so the dogs can begin.
My wife came up to me. She didn't have no tears in her eyes. She just was just in a daze. My mother, my grandmother, my sister, my brother, they gone.
Wow.
You know, she said, just take me, and just lay me down next to my grandmama. And she went up to that Kool-Aid, to that death barrel, and she just didn't hesitate, just took it and drank it, and then told me to hold her, to take her, and I did. And she died in my arms. And once I laid her down, and she told me how she wanted to lay with her grandmother, I at that point knew that I didn't have no reason to be here anymore.
We laid it down, we got tired. We didn't commit suicide, we committed an act of revolutionary suicide protesting the conditions of an inhumane world.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? He called it explicitly revolutionary suicide. That's important because that's what communists still talk about when people light themselves on fire.
We didn't commit suicide, we committed an act of revolutionary suicide protesting the conditions of an inhumane world.
Protesting the conditions of an inhumane world with capitalism.
They were just fucking slaughtered. They were fucking slaughtered. There was nothing dignified about it. Had nothing to do with revolutionary suicide. Had nothing to do about making a fucking statement. It was just senseless waste. Senseless waste and death.
Oh, God.
To whomever finds this note, collect all the tapes, all the writing, all the history. The story of this movement, this action, must be examined over and over. We did not want this kind of ending. We wanted to live, to shine, to bring light to a world that is dying for a little bit of love.
I never believed in heaven in my whole life. You know, that's not the way I operated. But when I think I am, and when I watch the sunrise and stuff, I actually thought there was a heaven on earth. And now I can't believe in heaven anymore.
There's quiet as we leave this world. The sky is gray. People file by us slowly and take the somewhat bitter drink. Many more must drink.
I'm saddened because it didn't work out, because it just seemed so beautiful.
Yeah,
And I'll
communism
say this
seems
about
beautiful
November 18th.
until you actually
I felt
have
I'd lost a family, and I knew I had lost my children.
A teeny kitten sits next to me watching. A dog barks. The birds gather on the telephone wires. Let all the story of this people's temple be told.
We were people that we wanted to make a change. It's a shame it didn't happen. It might not never happen. But one thing I can say, at least we tried. And we didn't sit back and wait on the laurels of somebody else to try it. Yes, we tried it. Yes, it was a failure. Yes, it was very tragic. But at least we tried.
If nobody understands, it matters not. I'm ready to die now. Darkness settles over Jonestown on its last day on earth.
I never had any dreams of Jonestown until this one dream came. I could see myself in Jonestown walking. And when I looked to my left, there was my son. He was standing in the middle of a duffel bag. And just right when I got ready to reach to touch his head, he pulled the bag up like this, and the bag fell, and he was gone.
Wow. I can do like the video for this one. That's wild. What a fucking crazy documentary. So, that's what you get with communism. You're welcome. I think it's important to be reminded of that every now and again. Guys, that is going to conclude our Socialism Saturday for tonight. I know it's a little bit of a weird Socialism Saturday, but you know what? I think we did pretty well. Thank you to everyone who donated 83 channel memberships. Missed out on our goal just slightly, but that's okay. You guys have taken really good care of me this week, so it's not a big deal. I so appreciate everyone who donated channel memberships today. I appreciate everyone who sent in super chats today. Normally, I take Sundays off. I'm currently planning on taking tomorrow off because I need my sanity as well. But we will be doing movie night in the supporter Discord, 7 p.m. tomorrow. I forget what we're watching. No, isn't it like iRobot or something? Am I making that up? I think we're watching like iRobot or some sort of movie related to AI or robots or something. I'm pretty sure it's iRobot though. So join us for movie night in the supporter Discord, 7 p.m. I will post the link out to channel members tomorrow afternoon. We also do movie nights on Monday nights at 9 p.m. You can join us for that as well. Thank you again to everyone who supported the stream tonight, and we'll see you guys soon.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here? 3 months, May 17th. And what brought you here? That's difficult to answer.
eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.